Chapter 756. That's strange. There are so many blackguards around Qin Hui. How could they all disappear? Qiao Rui said, there are so many people, not just 2 or 3. It would be difficult to hide their tracks. Bai Xiaowen said, the sentries didn't see any trace of Qin Hui, which means that Qin Hui is still hiding in the hinterland of the Blood God Palace. I think of a place. Li Shi's eyes lit up. Are you talking about the secret passage of the arsenal? The secret passage of the arsenal is the only place that can accommodate so many people and not be discovered by the sentries of the Blood God Palace, Bai Xiaowen said. But isn't the palace master the only one who knows about the secret passage of the arsenal? Bai Xiaowen shook his head. The arsenal has been built for 100 years. How can a secret be kept for 100 years? Besides, if Qin Hui can practice the Blood God Sutra, what else is impossible? Qiao Rui nodded. That's right. Qin Hui is the general manager of the Blood God Mountain. He must have countless opportunities to know how to open the secret passage. Besides, the secret passage is nothing. I believe that he has the ability to enter the arsenal. Then let's go into the secret passage and search. As long as we can find a blackguard of the Blood God Mountain in the secret passage, we can find their leader. Bai Xiaowen said. Do you want to tell Gu Yulian? Qiao Rui asked. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. No, it's better to keep the news that we entered the secret passage to hunt down Qin Hui a secret. Qin Hui has been in the Blood God Mountain for many years. It's hard to guarantee that he didn't leave any pawns behind. Of course, I'll prepare an emergency measure just in case. At this time, Bai Xiaowen could walk freely in the 3 peaks and 4 valleys of the Blood God Palace with the Blood God token. Even if he entered the main hall of the Blood God Palace, no one would care if he entered the secret passage behind the Palace Master's throne. However, he still chose the safest way, which was to sneak in through the water valve of the heart-cleansing pond. However, as soon as he dived into the heart-cleansing pond, Bai Xiaowen sensed a strange yet familiar connection through the telepathy of the summoned creature. It was like a vegetative person who had been asleep for many years had woken up. The consciousness star started to shine again. Bai Xiaowen followed the water valve into the secret passage. After coming out of the water, he immediately suppressed his excitement and communicated with the consciousness star, summoning the summoned creature represented by it. Kits! You've finally awoken. Bai Xiaowen was rather emotional. Keats had been asleep for quite a long time this time. The summoned Kits scratched his head. Boss? How long have I slept? My head feels a little groggy. This place doesn't look like the underground mausoleum of the monastery. Bai Xiaowen laughed and scolded, Monastery? You've been sleeping for months. Right now, we are exploring a whole new plane. Be careful, this plane is extremely difficult. Kits scratched his head. Qiao Rui had been frowning as he looked at Kits. He suddenly said, something's not right. What is it? This summoned creature of the captain's is somewhat different from before. I mean on the spiritual level. Qiao Rui said. She hadn't seen Kits appear many times before, and her memories were rather hazy. However, as a soul speaker, she couldn't be wrong about the feeling that came from the soul. Bai Xiaowen narrowed his eyes. Kits drank the blood of a grand monarch. Hey, he couldn't have been possessed by the consciousness of that grand monarch vampire, could he? Kits called out loudly, Hey, boss, there's a limit to your jokes, alright? It's just a bottle of strengthened blood essence. How could it have a consciousness, compared to before? I do feel somewhat different. Kits waved his arms and kicked his legs. My body has improved somewhat, but the greatest change is in my control of this vampire's body. I'm much more flexible than before. Bai Xiaowen immediately opened Kit's stats panel. Vampire Kits, Elite Level 7, Race, Undead/Blood Kindred, Attributes, Strength 24, Agility 48, Constitution 23, Spirit 15, including Shaman's bonus and Spirit bonus, Skill 1, Cursed Body, omitted, Skill 2, Night Walker, omitted, Skill 3, Bloodlust Attack, omitted. In terms of skills, they were the same as the original skills. However, in terms of attributes, they had all increased, mainly in the area of agility. Of course, this also had to do with Bai Xiaowen rising to level 7. His spirit bonus had increased to +7 for all attributes, and Kit's level had also risen to level 7. Bai Xiaowen did some mental calculations. Kit's current agility had increased by a full 18 points compared to his original level 6 state. That was equivalent to an additional 2 points of base agility growth for each level, for a total of 4 points of agility per level. In this way, Kit's had leapt to become a rare elite level summon creature with a base attribute growth of 8 points per level, comparable to the Butcher's growth. What kind of concept was 4 points of agility growth per level? According to Bai Xiaowen's calculations, the Wrath Claw, as the leader, only increased his agility by 4 points every time he leveled up. Of course, the Wrath Claw's total growth was 10 points, and the extra 2 points were in Constitution and Spirit, which was more comprehensive than Kit's. Now, Kit's was already a high agility existence in Bai Xiaowen's army of summon creatures, whose agility was second only to the Wrath Claw, 50 points. It looked like drinking the Vampire Grand Lord's blood was really a great supplement for him. The only problem was that he had been asleep for too long. If Bai Xiaowen had been a normal summoner, losing an elite summon creature for several months in a row would have been very painful. Bai Xiaowen had also considered the reason why Keats had been in hibernation for such a long time. The most reliable conjecture was that Keats had drunk the Vampire Grand Lord's blood on his own, without the participation of any researchers. Yes, I'm talking about you, Dr. Goldfish Eyes. Although the Grand Lord's blood was generally compatible with his vampire body, there were still some minute differences that rejected it. If the zombie doctor was involved, he could use some methods that Bai Xiaowen didn't understand to minimize the rejection, and perhaps he would wake up in a few days. For the specifics, he could refer to the Butcher's stomach transplant. But without the zombie doctor, this kind of rejection could only rely on Kit's own bodily functions to adjust, and the time required would be several times or even tens of times longer. So, in the future, when he came across such strengthening materials for summon creatures, it was best to go to the Cane Plain and find the zombie doctor. Oh, wait! Before Bai Xiaowen closed Kit's attribute panel, he suddenly revealed a look of surprise. Kit's, what's up with your equipment column? What equipment column? Kit's was confused. Bai Xiaowen said, it's the 2 additional columns on your panel, weapon and upper equipment. To put it simply, you can use equipment, but it's limited to 2 pieces, weapon and upper equipment. Bai Xiaowen summoned the Butcher and displayed the Butcher's 3-piece set. The crown, scepter, and robe all emitted the magnificent green glow of the set. I can do it too. Kit's pointed at his own nose with some surprise. That's great. Since you've activated the equipment column, it means that your soul has fused with this vampire body to a certain extent. Bai Xiaowen stroked his chin and said thoughtfully, this might be the reason why Sister Qiao Rui felt the changes in your soul. In fact, when my consciousness is connected to yours, I can also feel a familiar yet unfamiliar feeling. During this period of hibernation, you've brought me quite a few surprises. Kit's rubbed his hands together enthusiastically. Boss, what kind of cool, flashy, and powerful, it's best if it's equipment that you can't use. Can you reward me with a few pieces to wear? Bai Xiaowen rummaged through his storage space. Upper equipment and weapons are all relatively rare and precious drops. There really aren't many in stock. Oh, here's a windbreaker. Take it and wear it. Bai Xiaowen took out that wandering swordsman's windbreaker. It was bound when picked up. It increased agility by 5 points and a certain evasion rate. It didn't have any special skills. This gold equipment was only slightly stronger than standard gold equipment. It was also bound when picked up, so it couldn't be sold for a high price. Bai Xiaowen would sooner or later use it as a sacrifice to strengthen his equipment or disassemble it. It wouldn't be a loss to give it to Kit's to wear now. Hansu scratched his head. Qiao Rui covered her mouth and chuckled. Following such a rich captain, it always felt like the future was bright. In fact, even hero-class awakened ones might not be able to get a full set of gold equipment. When the others saw Bai Xiaowen casually toss a gold upper to a summoned creature, they would most likely cry out. What a waste! Kits happily put on the windbreaker and changed out of his default double-breasted aristocratic attire. He felt like his entire person had become elegant and confident. Boss, how's my equipment compared to Fatty's? Kits confidently put one hand on Fatty's waist. With his height, it was impossible for him to put his hand on Butcher's shoulder. He casually asked. Your style is perfect. Paired with your melancholy eyes and coarse beard stubble, your handsomeness is through the roof, Bai Xiaowen said. Then what about my combat ability? You're completely destroyed. Bai Xiaowen laughed. Standard gold equipment couldn't be compared to a 3-piece set. The set bonus effect was priceless. Kits received a bit of a blow, but his personality was carefree, and he instantly threw it to the back of his mind. He chuckled and said, Don't worry. Using the words of Boss Hometown, being handsome is a matter of life. As for weapons, Bai Xiaowen temporarily didn't give Kits a gold-class weapon. He only gave him a blue-grade one-handed sword. He vaguely felt that the most suitable weapon for Kits was the gold staff called Double Fangs, but Bai Xiaowen's basic strength and agility weren't enough. As for the Fang dagger, it was bound to his equipment and had a high trade value. He wouldn't give it to Kits. Once he wore it, he couldn't trade it. It would only be a waste of good stuff. Kit's awakening could be considered to have increased Bai Xiaowen's combat ability, although the increase wasn't great. After equipping Kits, Bai Xiaowen put Butcher and Kits back into the Black Soul Stone. Then the group of 4 advanced along the secret path. The secret path was completely dark. Even with the vision of an awakened one, they could only rely on some luminous moss growing on the cave walls to see the basic outlines of objects. Moreover, the secret path twisted and turned repeatedly. It was as complicated as a maze. Even with light, it was easy to get lost. Fortunately, Bai Xiaowen had come here once before with Gu Yulian. Through his spiritual perception, he had already memorized the rough map of the secret path in his mind. This time, he led the members of the White Phoenix squad forward. He was very familiar with the path, as if he had lived in the secret path for a long time. Li Shi and Xiao Rui were already used to it. In their eyes, Bai Xiaowen was a bug-level character with an extremely high IQ. Han Su, however, was extremely impressed. What was a thigh? This was a thigh, a leader with 99 martial strength and 999 intelligence. After walking for a while, Xiao Rui suddenly said in a low voice, Be careful. Bai Xiaowen nodded. There are people up ahead. Pay attention to my orders. Don't act rashly. After turning a corner, the White Phoenix squad encountered 3 black-clothed men. Without waiting for the 3 to speak, Bai Xiaowen shouted, Password. The 3 men were stunned. The leader subconsciously said, Jiangdong's talents. Bai Xiaowen nodded and said with a smile, We're brothers. Thank you for your hard work. The 3 black-clothed men couldn't see clearly in the dim light, so they nodded. The leader even said, We're all working for the master. What's the trouble? As they spoke, the 2 groups of people passed by each other. After walking far away, the tense atmosphere in the White Phoenix squad eased a little. Xiao Rui laughed. You're good at bluffing. Bai Xiaowen smiled. Although this secret path is hidden, Gu Yulian also knows where it is. How can Qin Hui not guard against Gu Yulian's infiltration? The secret path is dark, and we can't see the face clearly. Password is a very normal precaution. We're in the enemy's camp now. It's best not to expose ourselves too early. Otherwise, we'll be surrounded by the leader of the Blood God Peak and a large group of Blackguard. It'll be very troublesome. If it's a password, it's usually the second half of the sentence, right? What if they asked us for the second half of the sentence? What should we do? Li Shi said. Bai Xiaowen helplessly spread out his hands. Then we'll have to fight. After walking for a while, they met the second group of patrols. This time, Bai Xiaowen beat them to it again. Jiangdong's talents. Roll over. The other side answered very quickly. Bai Xiaowen secretly exclaimed that it was a close call. When he heard the first half of the sentence, he expected the second half of the sentence to be roll over. The probability was as high as 90%. For this reason, Bai Xiaowen secretly mocked Qin Hui for being a hipster. He set up such a password that could be easily deduced. But he didn't expect that the second half of the password and the one Bai Xiaowen deduced had the same meaning, but there was a difference of one word. If Bai Xiaowen was careless, it would inevitably arouse suspicion and be exposed. The language of Huaxiao was broad and profound. After the two sides exchanged passwords, they were about to pass by each other. Suddenly, a black guard from the patrol team opposite them said, "Hey, why are there 4 of you patrolling? Didn't Elder Hong say that 3 people were in a group?" Bai Xiaowen's mind raced. He smiled and said, "It's a coincidence. After we were divided into groups, there happened to be one more person who joined our group. This brother's voice sounds a bit unfamiliar. I wonder which elder is in charge." Chapter 757. Bai Xiaowen frowned and replied without hesitation, "That's right. Then from now on, brothers should get closer to each other," the black guard said with a smile, with a trace of envy in his voice. "Elder Chiu is famous for his good temper, unlike our Elder Hong, who has a fiery temper and scolds him for the slightest dissatisfaction. Brothers, you are really lucky." Bai Xiaowen's heart was alarmed and he sent a warning in the team channel. He then used insight on the 3 black guards and sent their information to the team channel. Li Siyuan, Elite Level 8, Race, Humanoid/Human, Profession, Swift Swordsman, Attributes, Strength 33, Agility 52, Vitality 31, Spirit 28, Special Skill, Whirlwind Willow Level 2, Gain 120 points of True Energy, 1 points of True Energy Circulation per cycle, Maximum Damage Output of 8 points. Skill 1, Roving Steps. When in the state of roving steps, movement speed is increased by 1, for %x True Energy Output, evasion ability is increased, jumping ability is increased by 14% x True Energy Output. Skill 2, Chaotic Cloak Swordsmanship. When using this swordsmanship move, your attack speed is increased by 30%, but your hit rate is decreased by 10%. Your one-handed swordsmanship specialty is increased by 1 level by default. Skill 3, Frenzy, Passive, critical hit rate increases after blood loss. For every 1% of life points lost, you gain an additional 1% critical hit rate. This effect will automatically expire when blood loss reaches 50%. This was the information of the black-clothed man who spoke to Bai Xiaowen. The information of the other 2 black-clothed men was more or less the same. It was obvious that their Nigong skills were common, such as Reckless Bull's Strength and Flying Wild Goose skill. Their maximum True Energy output did not exceed 10 points. While sending the information of the 3 black guards to the team channel, Bai Xiaowen casually replied, "We are all working for the Lord. What's there to be lucky about?" "Haha." The black guard named Li Siyuan laughed for a while and then shouted, "You are not from Blood God Peak." "You are. Do it." Bai Xiaowen let out a low growl and immediately used his deterrence. Suddenly, the 3 men in black froze. When Li Siyuan said those words, Bai Xiaowen felt that something was wrong. In this oppressive dark secret passage, the black guard was silent. Li Siyuan seemed too friendly, as if he was trying to trick Bai Xiaowen. Unfortunately, Bai Xiaowen was not a member of the Blood God Peak. He really did not know who Elder Chiu and Elder Hong were. Therefore, Bai Xiaowen could not accept this bluff. He could only use his fists to do the talking. From this, it could be seen that the elites could not be underestimated. Some elite-level spirit realm beings were even more intelligent than the leaders. Of course, the potential of these elites was not small. In the future, they could break through the template and become commander-class experts. Most of the time, the standard class and elite class awakened ones who entered the spirit realm to explore were fighting with the elite-level spirit realm beings. The Wrath Claw was summoned and pounced toward Li Siyuan. Behind it, Kitz and Delafa also appeared through the airdrop. They blocked both ends of the passage. Li Shui and Han Su, who were already prepared, rushed forward. Li Shui's sword directly pierced through the chest of a man in black on the left. Compared to the leader, Li Siyuan and the other two needed half the time to break through the deterrence control. They only regained their ability to move after 2 seconds. This was also why the man in black on the left could not dodge Li Shui's sword. Of course, as a level 8 elite from the Sword Song dimension, the Black Guard was also extraordinary. The moment the blade entered his body, he forcefully twisted his muscles. At the same time, he turned his body to the extreme, causing the blade to miss the vital point of his heart. It only pierced through his lung, causing him to suffer a serious injury. It was difficult for him to circulate his inner energy. Ping, ping, pang, pang. The two sides engaged in a fierce battle in the dark passage. Li Siyuan's wild cloak sword was unleashed. He was like a crazy demon, and the surroundings were filled with bright sword light. The Wrath Claw took a hit. Immediately, a long cut appeared and blood flowed out. This hit was a critical hit, so the wound was very scary. Bai Xiaowen's life sharing was still bound to the butcher, so the Wrath Claw's HP was not guaranteed. Fortunately, Han Su, an MT who was good at protection, was there. He turned around and slammed his heavy shield to the ground, blocking Li Siyuan's 2 follow-up attacks. This gave the Wrath Claw a chance to catch its breath. It quickly gathered its strength and pounced forward again with a howl. Its sharp claws left 6 wounds on Li Siyuan's body. Bai Xiaowen snorted. He first cooperated with Li Shui to kill the injured Black Guard. Then, he summoned the Butcher and surrounded the remaining 2. With the Butcher's frontal attack and damage reduction, Li Siyuan and the other 2 Black Guards were quickly defeated and killed one after another. The 3 Black Guards dropped a silver treasure chest, but the score was very low. Bai Xiaowen casually picked it, but unfortunately, he got a bye. Fortunately, the 3 Black Guards all gave more than 2,000 psionic points, which was a good income. The rules of the spiritual realm automatically distributed the points according to contribution. Let's speed up. Bai Xiaowen whispered. The battle just now had caused quite a commotion. The Black Guards of the Blood God Peak would soon follow the noise and arrive. As time passed, more and more Black Guards would swarm over. Even the leader-level experts like Elder Hong and Elder Chiu that Li Siyuan mentioned would appear. The difficulty would increase as time passed, and the ultimate goal was to kill the leader of this group of Black Guards, the leader-level expert Qin Hui, who was very likely to be above level 9. This was the difficulty of the S+ rank elite mission. Of course, part of the difficulty was to find Qin Hui. Currently, Bai Xiaowen and the others were not sure of Qin Hui's exact location. Bai Xiaowen could only follow Gu Yulian's path according to his memory. This path would lead to the armory. He felt that if Qin Hui was in the secret passage, the most likely location would be the open space in front of the armory. The patrol teams in this area had obviously become more concentrated. Many Black Guards were rushing in this direction. Fortunately, Bai Xiaowen had already gotten the password. He could always use the machine to deceive them. After passing by 3 patrol teams in a row, Bai Xiaowen gestured for his teammates to hide in a secluded place. Aren't we in a hurry? Li Shui asked. I found that there's something wrong with the enemy's movements, Bai Xiaowen said. After discovering the bodies of Li Siyuan and the others, most of the patrol teams went in the direction we came from. What does this mean? His 3 teammates fell into deep thought. Bai Xiaowen did not keep them in suspense. This means that the leader of the Black Guard has a problem with his train of thought. He thinks that we are just spies here to spy on the secret passage. He would never have thought that we are just a few people here to take Qin Hui's head. From the perspective of the Black Guard, they would naturally try their best to stop us from escaping the secret passage. Chapter 758. Just in case, Qiao Rui activated his psychic energy shield. Bai Xiaowen spread out his psychic energy to detect the movements of the Black Guard. It was just as Bai Xiaowen had expected. Through his psychic energy, he could see groups of Black Guard moving in the direction that the White Phoenix team had come from. After waiting for about 15 minutes, Bai Xiaowen and Qiao Rui could sense that the number of Black Guard members in the area ahead was decreasing. The leader of the Black Guard probably felt that the number of Black Guards they had sent out was enough, so he didn't send any more. Is it about time? Qiao Rui asked. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. Let's wait a little longer. Don't rush. At this moment, the two suddenly sensed that there were people approaching again. There were about 2 or 3 patrol teams with about 10 people. They were talking as they walked. As they got closer, Li Shi and Han Su could hear the voices with their hearing. A slightly old and gloomy voice said, "Did you find them?" Another middle-aged man's voice sounded. "Elder Qiu, our brothers chased them all the way to the water valve but couldn't find them." Another person said, "I'm afraid they have already escaped." The old and gloomy voice snorted. "Escaped? Not necessarily. Lead the way. I'll go check it out myself." Footsteps sounded again. Li Shi sighed and said in the team channel, "It seems that waiting a little longer is worth it. The opponent has one less high-level boss. It'll be easier to fight." Before Bai Xiaowen could say anything, the torches suddenly lit up and there was the sound of air being torn apart. 2 groups of Black Guard rushed out from the front and back corridors where they were hiding. There were about 10 people in total. Not good. Bai Xiaowen knew that they had been discovered by the enemy. He didn't hide and led Li Shi and the others out. An old man in a black robe walked out from between the 2 Black Guard. His eyes were sunken, his face was full of wrinkles, and his hair was white. He was probably Elder Qiu Hai. What a joke. You haven't even cultivated your inner strength, and you don't even know how to hide your breathing. You want to avoid my detection? Qiu Hai revealed a faint smile, appearing rather pleased with himself. The 4 of you are the culprits who helped Gu Yulian at the Sword Discourse Cliff and ruined Master's plans. This old man will capture you alive and hand you over to His Majesty. It will be a great merit. Li Shi retorted sarcastically, "Your master is already a stray dog, yet you're still so loyal to him, asking for credit and rewards." Before Qiu Hai could say anything, Bai Xiaowen had already posted his information in the party channel and gave the order to attack. This was the enemy's lair, and they had the advantage in numbers. If this continued, the situation would become unpredictable when a large number of Black Guard arrived. Qiu Hai, Leader Level 8, Race, Humanoid/Human, Class, Xianin Martial Artist, Attributes, Strength 52, Agility 70, Constitution 39, Spirit 28, Special Skill, Corrosive Shadow Magic Level 2, received 400 points of True Qi, 2 points of True Qi circulation per cycle, maximum output of 21 points. Skill 1, Advanced Levitation Technique, omitted. Skill 2, Transforming Bone Soft Palm. When using this palm technique, your combat specialty will increase by 2 levels by default. If you use the Transforming Bone Soft Palm to hit the enemy, the target must resist with inner strength/constitution, or else they will enter a weakened state, with all attributes reduced by 10%. This state can be stacked up to 3 times. When stacked up to 3 times, the target will receive additional True Qi output *5 points of True Qi damage. Skill 3, Xianin Finger, infuse True Qi to attack the opponent's vital acupoints. The target must resist with inner strength/constitution, or else their acupoints will be sealed, and they will enter a corresponding abnormal negative state. Skill 4? Bai Xiaowen had gradually grasped the experience of dealing with the Sword Song Plains leader. In this battle, Butcher was still at the forefront, spreading the rotting poison. Bai Xiaowen decided to give this blood god peak elder called Qiu Hai a layer of poison first. The leader of the Sword Song dimension could resist the poison with his inner strength and reduce most of the poison damage, but many little drops made an ocean, and the poison damage was also considerable. Moreover, the main effect of the rotting poison was to limit the movement speed of these agility-type cheats who had Qinggong. In addition, if Qiu Hai relied on his inner strength to resist the poison, the True Qi output would be reduced by a lot, and his transforming bone soft palm would not be able to unleash its full power. After the butcher, Bai Xiaowen waved his cold winter wand, and frost shards shot out one after another. Compared to the +7 Desert Eagle, the Cold Winter one's output was slightly inferior, but its advantage was in the type of spell. It could adjust the trajectory through meditation, and the chance of being dodged by the leader of the Sword Song Dimension, who had high movement speed and evasion, would be greatly reduced. Moreover, the slowing effect of the frost shards and the rotting poison stacked together, making Qiu Hai feel like he was in a swamp. His wind-like speed was directly reduced by half, and the threat was greatly reduced. Qiao Rui did not play the soul rhythm. Instead, he used the sound attack array's shattering scale to cast a series of basic sound attack spells, reducing Qiu Hai's HP. The leader of the Sword Song Dimension had extremely low HP. A level 8 leader like Qiu Hai only had less than 400 HP. He could be considered fragile, and it was very easy for him to reduce his HP. On the other side, Li Shi and Han Su rushed into the crowd of Black Guard, one attacking and one defending. Their coordination was quite methodical. Li Shi faced these Black Guard, who were generally level 7 or level 8 and had various martial arts bonuses and melee specialties. Her own specialization in swordsmanship was somewhat at a disadvantage. However, with Han Su's help, she could let loose and only attack without defending, and the threat she posed to the enemy greatly increased. After the 3 consecutive slashes hit, Li Shi finally began to stack passive layers. After the first few layers of passive layers were stacked, Li Shi's strength and agility increased at the same time, like a rolling snowball. The later layers of passive layers were even easier to stack. The Black Guard, who had been hit by the 3 consecutive slashes, had his heart pierced by her sword, and was instantly killed by a critical hit. Han Su's heavy shield blocked the Black Guard's attack, but it was quite strenuous. The main reason was that his level and combat specialties were inferior to these high-level elites. However, Han Su was also ruthless. When his heavy shield was unable to block in time, he directly used non-vital parts of his body to help Li Shi take the damage. His armor was very high, and his HP was also relatively long. After taking a few attacks from the Black Guard, his HP did not drop quickly. When Han Su's HP dropped to a dangerous level, Qiao Rui's health healed him back. Seeing that Han Su, who was covered in wounds, was still full of energy, the Black Guard who surrounded him secretly panicked. The experts of the Sword Song Dimension were very wary of getting injured, because injuries would affect the circulation of internal energy and cause combat effectiveness to plummet. Therefore, the Black Guard did not understand the fighting style of the 4 members of the White Phoenix team. Bai Xiaowen summoned creatures, such as the Wrathclaw, Kits, Delifa, and so on, were all summoned to participate in the battle against the Black Guard. They blocked the remaining Black Guard outside the battlefield, preventing them from supporting Qiu Hai. Chapter 759. At first, Qiu Hai was not used to Bai Xiaowen and Qiao Rui's fighting style. After taking 2 frost shards and 1 broken scale, his HP was reduced by more than 100 points. His movement speed was also reduced, and he was ravaged by Butcher's poisonous gas. However, Qiu Hai was an experienced fighter after all. He quickly realized that Butcher was just a meat shield. Butcher had high HP and defense, so he could not kill him. The focus of the battle was on Bai Xiaowen and Qiao Rui. Whether it was Frost Finger or martial arts of rhythm, it was difficult for him to dodge. Qiu Hai let out a long roar. His clothes suddenly swelled up, and a layer of faint water ripples surrounded his body. Facing the Butcher's scepter that was smashing towards him, he didn't even try to dodge. Instead, he took a step forward and passed by. Bang! Butcher's giant snake staff hit Qiu Hai's back. Bai Xiaowen, who was controlling the staff, felt an extremely flexible force. It was as if he had hit a pile of cotton. It was so soft that he could not exert any strength. A notification came from the spiritual realm. This was Qiu Hai's last skill, Energy Shield. It could greatly reduce the damage of the next melee attack and turn the power of the enemy's melee attack into his own. Butcher's giant snake staff was not light. Even with the Energy Shield reducing the damage, Qiu Hai still felt a sharp pain in his back and chest. However, Chiu Hai's movement speed suddenly increased. He rushed in front of Xiao Rui like a ghost and struck out with the bone-melting soft palm. Bai Xiaowen was prepared. He stepped forward and took Chiu Hai's bone-melting soft palm with his body. With a soft pop, Bai Xiaowen felt a strange, gentle force enter his body. He received more than 100 points of damage, and all his attributes were reduced by 10%. His body was also stunned. Chiu Hai sneered. I didn't expect you to be such a sentimental person. Well, if you want to be a hero, you'll have to pay with your life. He sneered, but his hands were not slow at all. The second bone-melting soft palm hit Bai Xiaowen squarely in the chest, causing him to retreat and cough up blood. Xiao Rui screamed and used Mind Cage to control Chiu Hai. She didn't let Chiu Hai use his third palm strike. A sinister sneer sounded. Suddenly, a black shadow pounced out like lightning. A steel staff smashed towards Bai Xiaowen with a vicious gust of wind. Bai Xiaowen summoned a skeleton swordsman and tried to block with a shield. However, the steel staff was like an agile snake. It slightly turned in a half-circle, bypassing the shield of the skeleton sword shield-bearer, and directly smashing the skeleton's skull, smashing it into bone fragments. Be careful. Another boss has arrived. Bai Xiaowen was secretly shocked. His polearm specialization was not low, so he could naturally tell that the owner of the steel staff was very strong. Just based on the speed of the staff's reaction, it would take at least a level 9 battle specialization or even higher to achieve this. Gray shadow flashed. Under the light of the torch, the owner of the steel staff revealed his face. He was a skinny middle-aged man with an expressionless face. It was as if he was wearing a human skin mask. On the other side, Chiu Hai had already broken through the mind cage. At the same time, he dodged the butcher's staff. He sneered and said, Hong Kun, why are you so late? The skinny middle-aged man named Hong Kun said indifferently, the black guard you sent to inform me is too slow. It takes time to go back and forth. Chiu Hai snorted. Fine. Take down these little bastards. I'll give you some credit for the Lord. Hong Kun was obviously a ruthless person who did not waste time talking. He did not even bother to talk to Chiu Hai. He smashed his steel staff with great force. Bai Xiaowen controlled the butcher to wave the giant snake staff to block. With a loud clang, the butcher staggered back. Then, Hong Kun's steel staff shrunk and extended like a snake. The tip of the staff accurately hit the butcher's genitals. Although Hong Kun had the upper hand, he was surprised. Apparently, he saw that the butcher could take a beating. The butcher's genitals were as if nothing had happened. Chiu Hai shouted, "This is the zombie herding technique. Zombies have no sense of pain. It's too troublesome to kill them. We have to attack the zombie herder directly." The two Blood God Peak elders quickly reached an agreement. Hong Kun's steel staff swung wildly. The summoned creatures were all repelled and cleared a path for Chiu Hai. Chiu Hai used the advanced levitation technique and rushed towards Bai Xiaowen. Go all out, Bai Xiaowen said in a low voice. Since there were 2 level 8 leaders here, and they were powerful leaders from the Sword Song realm, he could not hold back anymore. Xiao Rui took half a step back and blew the soul rhythm. Delifa the Banshee waved her hand and used soul extraction. The target was Chiu Hai. Under the double weakening effect, all of Chiu Hai's attributes fell rapidly. Even with the help of his inner force, his basic attributes were still his foundation. Chiu Hai's speed and strength were all reduced. Bai Xiaowen used deterrence. All of Chiu Hai's attributes fell by another 5% and he was temporarily stunned. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Bai Xiaowen used multiple ice shards. 3 ice shards flew towards Chiu Hai. Chiu Hai had actually used up a lot of his inner force. After being hit by the 3 ice shards, his health points fell to the danger line of 35%. A layer of frost also bloomed on the surface of his body. Bai Xiaowen put away the cold winter wand and the demon book of ravings. He stepped forward and threw a heavy punch that was burning with flames. At the same time, there was a flash of blood on the surface of his body. It was the ancient martial art of the grass sect under the effect of blood rage, wild bite. Bai Xiaowen had taken 2 of Qiu Hai's bone-melting soft palms. All of his attributes had fallen by 20%. However, the damage increase of blood rage could completely make up for it. In addition, Bai Xiaowen's gold ring of pain gave him the extreme pain potential effect. It increased his strength by almost 30 points. Under normal circumstances, this heavy punch would not be able to hit Qiu Hai. However, Qiu Hai had been slowed down by the 3 ice shards. The skeleton warrior and skeleton swordsman flanked him from the left and right. They also blocked off his space to dodge. Qiu Hai could only take a deep breath. He gathered the inner force of the shadow erosion magic and took Bai Xiaowen's punch head-on. Boom! The black clothes on Qiu Hai's chest were blasted open. The charred mark of a flaming fist was engraved on his chest. A powerful force surged into him. He screamed. His old and skinny body was thrown backward. He spat out a mouthful of black blood. Although he had been hit, Qiu Hai's combat experience was still very rich. He could see that Bai Xiaowen's punch had many variations. He was afraid that there would be more to it. Therefore, he reacted when he was hit. He used the momentum of Bai Xiaowen's punch to retreat quickly. That was how he created the shocking scene of him being sent flying by one punch. It also allowed him to avoid Bai Xiaowen's follow-up attacks. Even so, Qiu Hai's health points dropped to the bottom. Hong Kuan, who was behind him, saw that the situation was not good. He rushed forward and swept his steel staff to chase away the butcher, skeleton warrior, and other creatures in an attempt to save Qiu Hai. Chapter 760. If it were anyone else, it would be very difficult to kill Qiu Hai under Hong Kuan's protection. However, Delifa was a flying creature. Hong Kuan was not familiar with the way she attacked. Moreover, her combat skills were very high. She was not inferior to the high-level leaders of the Sword Song realm. Qiu Hai was in a state of being sent flying. He could not defend himself. After his chest was pierced, his old eyes widened in anger. He roared and used all his remaining strength to hit Delifa's chest with a bone-melting palm. Delifa screamed. A large part of her chest caved in. Blood spurted out of her mouth. Her body quickly turned into light and disappeared. Bai Xiaowen was shocked. He did not expect Qiu Hai's last attack to be so powerful. Delifa was directly killed by a palm. Fortunately, Delifa was a summoned creature. She could be revived in 12 hours. It was not a big deal. If one of the 4 members of the White Phoenix squad was hit by this palm, it would be a great loss. After Qiu Hai was killed, Bai Xiaowen immediately ordered the Butcher and Wrathclaw to surround the other level 8 leader, Hong Kuan. He took out the Desert Eagle again and started shooting from afar. He forced Hong Kuan to use some of his true chi to move and dodge the bullets. It was undeniable that Xiao Rui's soul rhythm weakening was a godly skill. After the weakening effect was stacked 5 times, Hong Kuan's strength, agility, and other attributes decreased. His attacks were not as fierce as before. Initially, almost all of the Butcher's attacks were blocked. He could only take a beating. However, at least his HP was stabilized now. Of course, the real strength of the leader of the Sword Song realm was his combat skills. When Hong Kuan used this set of staff techniques, his polearm skill had already reached level 10. Even though his attributes had been weakened, his steel staff was still unpredictable, pointing to the east and striking to the west. He was not at a disadvantage even when he was surrounded by Butcher and the summoned creatures. However, Xiao Rui's soul rhythm was mass weakening. The surrounding blackguard's attributes also decreased. Although these blackguard were elite martial artists, in terms of martial arts proficiency, they could not compare to a leader like Hong Kuan. After their attributes were weakened, the blackguards found it difficult to adapt. When they made their moves, they would often show some flaws that they shouldn't have. For the warriors of the Sword Song Plain, who had low HP and low defense and relied on combat techniques, a flaw meant an opportunity to exploit. On the other hand, Li Shi was a newly promoted ghost warrior. Not only was his attack speed extremely fast, but his critical strike rate was also very high. Once he grasped the opponent's weakness, he would often launch a lightning-quick strike at the opponent's vitals, instantly killing them. Li Shi's killing speed increased greatly. Almost every breath, a blackguard fell. Moreover, these blackguard were fearless men of sacrifice. Without orders from their superiors, they would fight to the death without retreating. Very quickly, the last blackguard fell under Li Shi's sword. The White Phoenix team quickly completed their encirclement of Elder Hong Kun. With the addition of Li Shi, a powerful and agile close combat hero, the pressure on Hong Kun multiplied. He could only take a defensive stance. However, under the siege, Hong Kun's steel staff couldn't block all the attacks. Soon, he was hit by Li Shi's sword. The pain penetrated his bones. Fortunately, it didn't hit his vitals. After the first wound, the second and third wounds followed. The skeleton warriors and Bai Xiaowen hit him consecutively. Hong Kun was injured. His vital energy gradually dissipated, and his strength was not increasing. He glanced at the blackguard's corpse on the ground, as well as Elder Chiu Hai's corpse, and felt regret in his heart. He didn't expect a young master of the Duanshui Villa and his 3 servants to be so powerful. The leaders of both the righteous and evil sects knew the strength of the Duanshui Villa's villa master, Bai Hanjiang. Bai Hanjiang's swordsmanship wasn't good enough. At best, he was at the level of an elder from the 3 peaks and 4 valleys. He was even slightly inferior and was easily defeated by Ng Jianfan. However, Bai Hanjiang's son and his servants were able to kill so many blackguard. Even the 2 great elders from the Blood God Peak would inevitably die here. Hong Kun's heart was filled with sorrow, and the will to die surged. He let out a roar from his throat and ignored Li Shi's sword. His steel staff was like a violent storm, almost engulfing all of Li Shi's dodging space. Li Shi was shocked. He didn't expect Hong Kun, who had always been on the defensive, to suddenly attack with all his might. She was also a low-health profession. If she exchanged blows with the leader, she would likely be killed. In desperation, Li Shi could only activate the ring's virtual skill. Hong Kun's crazy staff attack hit the air. He could only watch as Li Shi's sword pierced through his chest and the blade came out of his body. Bai Xiaowen's bullets, the butcher's giant snake staff, the skeleton warrior's large sword slashed, a series of attacks fell on Hong Kun's body. At the same time, Bai Xiaowen shouted, "Shi, retreat!" Li Shi, who was in the virtual state, didn't know what was going on. However, he still trusted Bai Xiaowen and didn't hesitate to abandon his sword and retreat, escaping from Hong Kun's melee range. Roar! Hong Kun, who was bathed in blood, held his steel staff with both hands. Suddenly, he spun like a top and released his inner force. A hot current surged and a strong wind swept out. The skeleton warrior, the butcher, Han Su, and other targets in Hong Kun's melee range all had their HP reduced by a large amount. This was Hong Kun's last attack. It was also his counterattack when he was on the verge of death. More importantly, this attack was a mixed attack. Not only did it contain physical damage from the steel staff, but it also contained the internal force of Hong Kun's inner force. It swept out and dealt fire damage, treated as magic damage. If Li Shi relied on his virtual state and stayed in the melee range, the consequences would be dire. This was because in the virtual state, the magic damage received would be greatly increased. Although Li Shi was a hero, his ability to withstand damage was much weaker than Han Su's. In the last round of attacks, Han Su only smashed his heavy shield in front of him and avoided most of the damage. Phew, a level 8 leader from the Sword Song realm is indeed much stronger than other realms, Li Shi said with emotion. Back in the Black Tide realm, Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi had faced a level 8 leader. At that time, it had not been as difficult as it was now. The 2 of them had improved greatly compared to that time. With the addition of Qiao Rui and Han Su as teammates, they had formed the White Phoenix team. Their strength had increased greatly. Let's continue forward. We can't stay here. Bai Xiaowen took a deep breath and put away the 2 gold treasure chests and the 3 silver treasure chests dropped by the blackguard. At this time, the 4 of them, including the summoned creatures, were not in peak condition. Especially the melee fighters, their HP had decreased greatly. The butcher gnawed on the corpses of the 2 leaders and continued to maintain the HP buff on him. Fatty's HP was the healthiest among the melee fighters. At first, he had lost a lot of HP, but as the blackguard died one by one, his HP recovered quickly. Later on, Hong Kun's main target was not him. It was just that he did not have time to retreat from the last horizontal sweep and took a mixed attack. Everyone took out potions and food to recover their HP. As they hurried forward, they recovered their HP. The most tired was Qiao Rui. His value as a support was reflected. Once the cooldown of Life Heal was over, he would immediately cast it to recover everyone's HP. Qiao Rui had used up a lot of his mental power. Fortunately, he had the filtered water of the Nile River from the ancient Egyptian realm. It only took a few seconds for him to recover. The importance of this battle to the entire mission was self-evident. The 2 people killed were Hong Kun and Qiu Hai. They were the 2 leaders of the Blackguard on Blood God Peak. Once they died, the order of the Blackguard would become much more chaotic. Unless Qin Hui personally came to command. However, Bai Xiaowen speculated that Qin Hui was either not in the armory or was busy with other things. He definitely could not come out. Otherwise, if Hong Kun could come to support them, why didn't Qin Hui come? The White Phoenix team avoided the Blackguard and continued to move in the direction of the armory. After walking for about 10 minutes, they approached the gate of the armory. From afar, they could see the open space in front of the armory. The walls around the open space were filled with torches, illuminating the dark underground tunnel as if it was daytime. The heavy bronze gate was still tightly shut. However, there were more than 10 Blackguard divided into 2 groups guarding the gate. They seemed to be quite vigilant. Qin Hui really did enter the armory. Bai Xiaowen said after taking a glance. Yes, if he wasn't in the armory, the Blackguard wouldn't have to be so strict. Li Shi took the opportunity to show off his intelligence. He was on the silver list of the National College entrance examination. He was also a top student. Qiao Rui frowned and said, "This is troublesome. Qin Hui is in the armory. We have to find a way to get in. We don't have Gu Yulian's key and we don't know the password. What should we do?" Bai Xiaowen gestured for his teammates to sit cross-legged on the ground to rest and recover. He touched his chin and fell into deep thought. Bai Xiaowen actually knew the password to the armory's heavy bronze gate. He had seen Gu Yulian's opening movements. Bai Xiaowen could completely copy her movements. However, without the secret key, knowing the password was useless. His teammates didn't dare to disturb Bai Xiaowen's thoughts. Bai Xiaowen tapped his fingers lightly. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. "I have an idea. Let's clean up the Blackguard at the gate and interrogate Qin Hui's whereabouts. Although we speculate that he is inside the armory, we still have to confirm it." The 4 members of the White Phoenix team finished their rest and reappeared. Without their leader, the elite Blackguard was no match for them. They were killed one after another. The White Phoenix team deliberately left 2 severely injured Blackguard alive to interrogate Qin Hui's whereabouts. The 2 of them were quite stubborn. They didn't answer at first. Later, they were frightened by Butcher's act of wanting to bite them. They had no choice but to admit that Qin Hui was inside the armory. The 2 of them didn't feel like they were betraying Qin Hui because Qin Hui was inside the armory and was incomparably safe. One of them even threatened, "Wait until the day our Lord finishes his training. The day he comes out of seclusion will be the day you die." So Qin Hui is practicing martial arts inside. What's the point of cramming at the last minute? Bai Xiaowen shook his head and killed the 2 Blackguard. After cleaning up the Blackguard outside the armory, Bai Xiaowen and the other 3 stood in front of the heavy bronze gate. The other 3 people's gazes all looked at Bai Xiaowen, waiting for him to come up with a solution. "We've been in the armory before. There were oil lamps burning inside for a long time. This means that the inside of the armory isn't completely sealed off. There are pipes that connect to the outside world for air circulation. Bai Xiaowen released his psychic tentacles and carefully probed the heavy bronze gate and the surrounding mountain walls. At the same time, he said, "Also, if the people inside are in seclusion for 3 to 5 months, what about their food? There should be pipes outside for dry food and clean water." Qiao Rui nodded to show that she understood. She also closed her eyes and released her psychic power to explore the surroundings for possible pipes. The 2 psychic-type metahumans were the main force of the exploration. As for Li Shi and Han Su, they were bored and went to open the treasure chests. First, there were 5 silver treasure chests. 3 of them were obtained from the previous battle, and the other 2 were obtained from this battle. Out of the 5 treasure chests, 3 of them were empty. They only gave some psionic points as a consolation. The other 2 silver treasure chests each dropped an item. Blood Demon Pill, Grade A item. It can stimulate the user's blood circulation speed and increase attack speed and movement speed by 25% for 120 seconds. After the effect ends, the user will fall into a weakened state for 4 hours and all attributes will be reduced by 25%. This Grade A item, Blood Demon Pill, did not have a particularly good effect. It only increased attack speed and movement speed, both of which were derived from agility. The negative effect was that all attributes were reduced, which was not a small price to pay. If it directly increased agility, the price would be even higher. Agility was an important basic attribute. It would increase critical hit rate, dodge, parry, block, and other derived attributes simultaneously. However, considering that it was an item dropped from an elite, he could not ask for too much. The other item was a blue equipment, Night Suit. It increased agility by 3 points and had an additional passive effect, Night Walking, which reduced the probability of being discovered when in stealth mode. This Night Suit was considered a good piece of blue equipment. Blue equipment with additional skills were very rare. Of course, the passive effect of Night Walking was very limited. Only assassins with stealth skills would need it. However, a real assassin would not be interested in a blue equipment that only added 3 points to agility. The real highlight was the 2 gold treasure chests. In terms of combat rating, Qiu Hai's treasure chest was Grade B, while Hong Kuan's treasure chest was Grade C. The first to open was Hong Kuan's treasure chest. Li Shi clicked on the card. After the golden light flipped, a small pile of sparkling and translucent crystals appeared in front of him. There were 3 special grade spirit crystals. This was not bad. The special grade spirit crystals could be used to strengthen equipment. They were basically the same price as standard gold equipment. One of them would not be less than 15,000 points. It was worth mentioning that Hong Kuan's treasure chest also dropped the Blood God Peak Elder Hong Kuan Identity Token. This token could be used to exchange for merit points from the Righteous faction or the Blood God Palace faction. From this, it could be seen that Qin Hui's Blood God Palace rebels were not welcomed. Both the Righteous and Evil factions viewed them as enemies. Just as Li Shi opened Qiu Hai's treasure chest, there was a sudden movement on the other side. Bai Xiaowen and Qiao Rui opened their eyes at almost the same time. "I found it." Chapter 761. "You found it? Wait a minute, I'll open this chest first." Li Shi quickly opened Qiu Hai's chest. The joy of drawing cards was endless, and the pale-faced and red-handed European king especially enjoyed this feeling. Qiu Hai's chest dropped a gold tier headwear, the ebony hairpin, and 2 premium psionic crystals. Of course, the Blood God Peak Elder Qiu Hai's token was an extra drop, so it didn't take up the number of draws. Bai Xiaowen took the hairpin and glanced at its attributes. Ebony hairpin, bound after pickup, grade, hero, gold, equipment position, head, equipment requirements, none, attributes, spirit +5, additional skill, broken arrow, take off the hairpin and throw it at the target, causing spirit *1 true damage. This damage ignores all damage absorption shields with priority 7 and below. Cooldown 12 hours. Durability Description: flying flowers and leaves can hurt people. From the looks of the hairpin's additional skill, it needs to be used by an awakened with high spirit to maximize the damage of the broken arrow skill. Qiao Rui gave his opinion. It's a bit useless. The description says throw, which means the broken arrow skill isn't a spell, so it doesn't benefit from the trajectory correction of meditation. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and said, in other words, it needs to be used by someone with high shooting to guarantee a hit rate. But don't awaken with high shooting have agility? The spirit attribute is permanent damage. Li Shi pursed his lips. Her spirit was indeed her shortcoming. Captain, your spirit and shooting. Han Su, the taciturn guy, said. Li Shi was reminded and immediately understood. That's right, Xiaowen. Isn't this equipment tailor-made for you? Your spirit is more than 70, and your shooting is at level 7. It's just right for you. Bai Xiaowen shook his head and smiled. It's indeed suitable in terms of skill. But even if I use it, it's not very suitable. 70 or 80 true damage is neither high nor low. It's a bit awkward. I won't trade this broken arrow skill for the MP recovery passive that I'm currently wearing. Keep it first. Qiao Rui said, true damage that ignores shields might come in handy one day. Bai Xiaowen nodded and put away the equipment. Originally, he wanted to give Han Su some spiritual energy points as compensation. After all, Han Su did not get anything from the treasure chests. However, Han Su firmly refused. You found the ventilation duct? Where is it? Li Shi brought up this topic again. Here. Bai Xiaowen and Qiao Rui led Li Shi and Han Su a dozen steps to the side. In an inconspicuous corner, there was a hole half a foot in diameter that was covered by an iron plate. Pushing aside the iron plate, the hole was revealed. How can we get into such a small hole? Asked Li Shi. This hole could be used for ventilation and food delivery, but there was no way it could accommodate a living person, not even a child. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, when I was thinking about it earlier, I already anticipated this possibility. The armory has such a tight door for safety. Of course, it's impossible to leave a ventilation duct that can allow living people to enter and leave. Otherwise, what's the point of this towering heavy door? Then you must have thought about how to solve this problem. Li Shi immediately saw through Bai Xiaowen's thoughts. Hurry up and do it. Don't keep us in suspense. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, when Gu Yulian opened the heavy bronze door, I also paid attention to the internal mechanism. Opening the door from the inside doesn't require a secret key. The three teammates were confused. Isn't this a paradox? If we want to open the door from the inside, we have to go in. But if we want to go in, the prerequisite is that we have to open the door. Li Shi spoke very quickly, speaking in a tongue-twisting manner. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, we can't go in, but there's one person who can. Oh, he doesn't count as a person anymore. As he spoke, Bai Xiaowen raised his hand to summon kits. Qiao Rui and Han Su, who weren't familiar with kits, didn't understand Bai Xiaowen's meaning, but Li Shi was the first to react. He said excitedly, right, why didn't I think of that? Xiaowen, you're too smart. Bai Xiaowen laughed heartily, and then told Kits what he had to say. Kits scratched his head. All right, I'll give it a try. The bats screeched, and Kits transformed into a swarm of bats. They flapped their wings and passed through the half-foot-wide hole, reforming their bodies inside the armory. Bai Xiaowen sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. His vision had already switched to the shared vision on Kit's side. Through the mental link, he controlled Kits to quietly grope towards the door mechanism. Bai Xiaowen even glanced towards the depths of the armory. Separated by stone pillars, he could vaguely see wisps of mist rising from the end of the armory. He couldn't see clearly if there was anyone there. Bai Xiaowen relaxed. What he was most worried about was that if Qin Hui was near the door and saw Kits barging in, he would slap Kits to death without asking any questions. Then all of their previous efforts would be wasted. Of course, the possibility of this was extremely small. Qin Hui should be cultivating on the jade bed where the previous palace masters cultivated. That was already the end of the armory. Afterwards, Bai Xiaowen controlled kits to find the door mechanism. Recalling Gu Yulian's movements at the time, Bai Xiaowen copied Gu Yulian's movements, and they were seamless. Soon, the heavy bronze door creaked as it slowly opened. Success! Li Shui, Qiao Rui, and the other two suppressed their excited cheers. Bai Xiaowen opened his eyes. Let's go in quickly. Although the sound of the door opening isn't loud, Qin Hui might still be able to hear it. To prevent him from running away, let's immediately close the door after entering. The group of four quickly entered, and Bai Xiaowen closed the heavy bronze door again. This way, even if a large number of Black Guard returned from the secret passage, they wouldn't be able to interfere with the White Phoenix team's battle to kill Qin Hui. Moreover, they could prevent Qin Hui from escaping. It could be said to be killing two birds with one stone. Of course, doing this had its pros and cons. If the four of them together couldn't beat Qin Hui, they would have to put in a lot of effort to open the mechanism if they wanted to escape. Who is it? Is it Gu Yulian? A shocked and angry voice rang out from the end of the armory. This voice was rather familiar. It was none other than Qin Hui. Obviously, Qin Hui still didn't know that Bai Xiaowen and the other three had barged into the secret passage, and even less that his capable subordinates Hong Kun and Qiu Hai had been killed. He still thought that Gu Yulian had brought people to the secret passage. This guess was very normal. After all, other than him, only Gu Yulian had the secret key and password to the armory. Chapter 762. Bai Xiaowen could vaguely make out Qin Hui's silhouette for more than 10 martial art stone pillars. It's you? Where's Gu Yulian? Get her to come out. Qin Hui scanned his surroundings cautiously. Bai Xiaowen smiled and said, Don't come out, Palace Master. Keep watch for us. While this old man is unprepared, give him a good beating and send him to heaven. Li Shui and his other teammates laughed to themselves. Qin Hui was even more bewildered. While he was on guard against Bai Xiaowen and the other three, he had to pay attention to the abnormalities around him. Even if it was a mouse or a few cockroaches, in his ears, it sounded like Gu Yulian was hiding in the dark. He really felt like an enemy in every bush and tree. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Bai Xiaowen saw Qin Hui's information and sent it to the team channel. Qin Hui, Leader Level 10, Race, Humanoid/Human, Profession, Bloodseeker, Attributes, Strength 62, Agility 82, Constitution 54, Spirit 37, Special Skill, Ice Age Skill/Blood God Sutra, Incomplete, Level 3, Received 800 points of True Energy, 5 points of True Energy per cycle, Maximum output of 55 points. Skill 1, Advanced Flying Skill/Blood Shadow Perplexing Track, Passive, Movement Speed increased by 18%, Evasion Rate increased by 18%, Active activation of Blood Shadow Perplexing Track can increase your movement speed by an additional 5% True Energy Output points, Jumping ability increased by 25% True Energy Output points. During activation of Blood Shadow Perplexing Track, you can launch a dash in front of your body and leave a blood shadow behind. The distance is determined by True Energy Output. Activating this skill again will return you to the position of the blood shadow. You can only launch a dash once in every 10 True Energy cycles. Skill 2, Master of Techniques, Passive, you are proficient in multiple martial arts, combat and one-handed sword skills +1 by default. Skill 3? Skill 4? Level 10 Leader. This was the first time Bai Xiaowen had encountered a max-level leader enemy. Qin Hui's attributes were generally balanced. His strength and constitution were not low, and his agility was 82 points. The key point was that Qin Hui cultivated the Blood God Sutra, Incomplete, which had a total of 800 True Qi points. The maximum output was 55 points. As expected, his inner strength was profound, and his explosive power was strong. They were both at LV3, but it could be said that he completely defeated Ng Jianfan's Condensing Cloud's divine art. However, perhaps because it was a remnant of the manual, the recovery speed of his Jinchi was not particularly fast. It was slightly weaker than the condensing cloud's divine art. Of course, the truly amazing part of Blood God Sutra was the martial arts it was paired with. Just the lightness skill Blood Shadow perplexing track alone was already very domineering. Aside from the astonishing bonus of true energy points, it also had the effect of shifting positions every 10 breaths. This was an additional effect that other martial artists had never seen before in their flying skills. Li Shi asked curiously, how can this person have 2 types of internal energy and 2 types of Qigong? From Qin Hui's personal information, it could be seen that there was glacier art in front of Blood God Sutra, incomplete, and advanced flying technique in front of Blood Shadow perplexing track. Bai Xiaowen said, this is very easy to understand. Blood God Sutra is a secret technique that only the Palace Lord allows to cultivate. Although Qin Hui secretly cultivates it, he still has to disguise it. The internal energy he displayed in front of Gu Yulian and the others was this glacier art. That's why Gu Yulian was so surprised when she saw that he knew Blood God Sutra. In fact, having an additional internal energy skill would not increase one's combat effectiveness. Some internal energy skills with opposing attributes would interfere with each other and cause adverse effects. The total amount of Jinqi Qin Hui possessed was given by Blood God Sutra, incomplete. If he used glacier art, whether it was the total amount of Jinqi or the explosive power output, they would all drop by a level. Qin Hui slightly closed his eyes. After confirming it several times, he finally opened his eyes. Gu Yulian is not here. In the entire Blood God Palace, except for concubine Yin, no one can hide from my eyes and ears. How did you get in here? And how did you get in here? Bai Xiaowen originally wanted to use Gu Yulian's name to make Qin Hui afraid and not dare to go all out. Now, his plan had failed. He was not in a hurry. Instead, he very patiently chatted with Qin Hui. Qin Hui faintly said, in order to enter this armory, I have planned for more than 20 years. Concubine Yin was indifferent to the affairs of the Blood God Palace. As the manager of the Blood God Palace, I had several opportunities to come into contact with the secret key of the armory. I used a clay mold to carve the shape of the secret key and successfully imitated it. Then what about the incantation to open the 12 golden plates? Bai Xiaowen asked again. Qin Hui snorted and said, this incantation, I knew it earlier than concubine Yin. The position of Blood God Palace Master should have been taken by me. It should not have been Wei Siqin's turn. Do you know the name of the 4th generation Palace Master? Bai Xiaowen and the other 3 all shook their heads. His name is Qin Wujiu. When this name was mentioned, Qin Hui's face showed a complicated expression. You are his son? Strange, why did he pass the position of Palace Master to concubine Yin and not to you? Bai Xiaowen was secretly curious. In the ancient Huaxia plain, the position of Palace Master was passed down to the son and not to the daughter. Qin Hui said, I am only the adopted son of Palace Master Qin. In his eyes, concubine Yin, his biological daughter, is naturally closer. It is a pity that I have been at his beck and call for more than 10 years. Bai Xiaowen secretly curled his lips. This Qin Hui's 3 views were not correct. The 4th generation Palace Master Qin Wujiu adopted him. It could be said that he was indebted to him. But because he did not pass the position of Palace Master to Qin Hui, Qin Hui's heart was filled with resentment. In the ancient Huaxia plain, it was the same. Qin Hui did not know what Bai Xiaowen was thinking. He said frankly, my adoptive father's eyes were covered by kinship. Originally, I was the successor that he groomed. He even passed down the incantation to open the armory to me. But when that concubine came, she took away all of my adoptive father's favor. My adoptive father is muddle-headed. Blood God Palace has no future under the control of Wei Siqin and Gu Yulian. If I did not do my best to maintain it, how could Blood God Palace have its current power? Only when I control Blood God Palace can I unify the martial arts world. Although the 4 of you are not strong, each of you has a unique ability. If you abandon the dark and join me, glory, wealth, and peerless martial arts will not be a problem. Bai Xiaowen and the other three were silent. Qin Hui said leisurely, I don't know what method you used to sneak into the armory and close the door, but it is useless. You are not my match. If I open the door, Hong Kuan, Qiu Hai, and Xia Xinming will bring a large number of Black Guard and rush in. You will have no chance of winning. The 4 members of the White Phoenix team were still silent. The atmosphere was a bit awkward. Qin Hui looked at Bai Xiaowen and shouted, Bai Xiaowen. Make a decision. Do you want to join me or die? Bai Xiaowen coughed. Chief Steward Qin, I am also very tempted by your proposal, but I am sorry, I am afraid it is not possible. Why? Bai Xiaowen suddenly waved his hand. This was the signal to attack. The moment he waved his hand, he laughed and said, because Hong Kuan and Qiu Hai have been killed by me. Whoosh! The butcher's huge body fell from the sky. With a gust of wind, he waved his giant snake scepter. The wrath claw pounced and the skeleton warrior used whirlwind strike. The summoned creatures immediately surrounded Qin Hui. Li Shi looked for an opportunity and went behind Qin Hui. He rushed forward and stabbed with his 2 swords. Qin Hui's mind was shaken and he lost the initiative. However, he was strong. His angry roar was like thunder, and the summoned creature's movements paused for a moment. Qin Hui backhanded the butcher with a palm strike. Before the butcher's huge body landed on the ground, he was sent flying into the distance like a rubber ball. He crashed into a stone pillar, and dust and stone rustled down. This palm strike took a total of 300 HP from the butcher. Part of the damage was absorbed by Bai Xiaowen. The other 3 members of the White Phoenix team were shocked. Qin Hui's damage was simply incomprehensible. However, Bai Xiaowen did not even blink. He continued to control the summoned creatures. For a moment, Qin Hui was surrounded by snow-white blade lights. Many skeleton warriors surrounded him and attacked. Qin Hui sneered. His body turned into a bloody shadow and suddenly appeared 3 feet away. He flashed out of the encirclement and appeared in front of Bai Xiaowen. His palm was like the sky-flipping seal, and it came down on Bai Xiaowen's head. Qin Hui's fighting specialty was at least 4 or 5 levels higher than Bai Xiaowen's. When this palm strike came down, it covered Bai Xiaowen's front, back, left, and right. It was as if the sky was round and the earth was round. There was nowhere to hide. However, before the palm strike could land, Qin Hui frowned. His body quickly moved 3 feet to the side. With a crackling sound, a bolt of lightning struck the ground. The shadow assassin's figure emerged from behind. Its short sword was aimed at Qin Hui's back. Assassinate skill activated. As if he had a pair of eyes on the back of his head, Qin Hui did not turn around. Instead, he sent a palm strike behind him. A bloody brilliance surged in the hollow of his palm. He used his palm of flesh to meet the shadow assassin's short sword. With a clang, the short sword flew out of the shadow assassin's hand. The shadow assassin was sent flying by the aftershock of the palm strike. Its HP quickly fell to the bottom. Fortunately, Qin Hui's palm strike was a mixed attack. It mainly dealt physical damage. The shadow assassin's racial passive ability mitigated some of the damage. Otherwise, it would have been killed on the spot. However, the 2 skeletal sword wielders that rushed over were not so lucky. Before their long swords could land, Qin Hui's palms silently pressed down on their sternum. The palm strike penetrated their bodies, and the skeletal sword wielders instantly exploded into bone dust. The strength of a level 10 leader of the Sword Song realm was truly terrifying. Bai Xiaowen pulled out his cold winter wand and shot out frost shards. Qin Hui was a little wary of this strange frost finger and was unwilling to take it head-on. To him, speed was life. His body flashed and disappeared into thin air. The next second, he appeared where the Blood Shadow had been. The active activation ability of Blood Shadow Perplexing Steps was truly unpredictable. Qin Hui appeared behind Li Shi and threw a punch at Li Shi's back. Qin Hui's move was quite beautiful. His punch was fast, and his combat skills were extraordinary. Li Shi could not dodge this punch at all. Han Su rushed over and activated the assist skill. With a muffled sound, the fist strike landed on the heavy shield and left a dent in the shield. Han Su's face suddenly flushed red. He felt a strange force enter his hands from the heavy shield and travel up. It was almost able to reverse the flow of his blood. A shocking number of 176 appeared above his head. He spat out blood and staggered back. He had clearly blocked it successfully, but there was still such a terrifying amount of damage. Bai Xiaowen's eyes were shining. He reminded in the party channel, "Be careful, this is a skill that has not been detected." Inverse Blood Seal. Inverse Blood Seal. Imbue the target with Blood God Sutra's true Qi and place the mark of the Inverse Blood Seal on it. The mark can be applied up to 3 layers. The number of layers is determined by the amount of true Qi output. You can detonate the Inverse Blood Seal within 3 seconds, causing the enemy's blood to flow backward and receiving true Qi. The number of layers is determined by the number of layers. Qin Hui had just used the Inverse Blood Seal with all his strength. The mark on Han Su's body had been stacked by 3 layers. Of the 176 points of damage, 150 were true Qi damage and 26 were reflected Qi damage. Qiao Rui had already started playing the soul rhythm. No matter how strong Qin Hui's Nigong was, it still required attributes to be used. No matter what kind of boss it was extremely effective to weaken all attributes. This is a martial art that is similar to the 6 Desires dance. Qin Hui frowned and snorted. He felt that as the sound of the flute rang out, it was as if there were strings that were pulling his body, preventing him from using his full strength. Qin Hui immediately regarded Qiao Rui as his most threatening enemy. He activated the Blood Shadow Perplexing Steps and approached Qiao Rui like a ghost. Clatter. This time, Bai Xiaowen was prepared. The butcher's chain wrapped around Qiao Rui's slender waist and dragged him back. Although Qin Hui's speed was fast, it was still slower than the butcher's chain. Taking advantage of Qin Hui's missed attack, Bai Xiaowen's frost shards finally hit its target. Although Qin Hui had blocked most of the damage with the Blood God Sutra's true Qi, the frost shard's slowing effect still took effect. Guerrilla tactics, Bai Xiaowen said in the party channel. At the same time, the second frost shard shot out. After the butcher put down Qiao Rui, he strode forward and activated the rotten toxin. He wanted to stop Qin Hui at all costs. However, even though Qin Hui was slowed down by the frost shards and the rotten toxin, he was still faster than everyone except for Li Shi. He didn't want to be entangled with the butcher. His body flashed and he bypassed the butcher. He raised his hand and a black beam of light shot toward Qiao Rui. Qiao Rui was alarmed. He immediately activated the shield that came with his cloak. With a light pop, a small pebble silently shattered into powder, and Qiao Rui's shield was also broken with a single blow. Fortunately, the soul rhythm's weakening effect was present. Otherwise, this attack wouldn't have been as simple as breaking the shield. This was Qin Hui's other skill, the concealed weapon mastery. Although he wasn't as good at using concealed weapons as the Valley Master of the Huanhua Valley, Kang Qin, his internal energy was more profound and his strength and agility were stronger. The power of his concealed weapons was superior. Li Shi's body glowed with a bloody light. He had already activated the Blood Monarch's emblem. His movement speed increased sharply and he pounced toward Qin Hui. He couldn't retreat now. In the face of a strong enemy, there was no use being afraid. The only way was to fight to the death. The only problem was that Li Shi's Ring of Nothingness had been used to kill the 2 Blood God Palace elders. He lacked a layer of insurance when facing Qin Hui. If they were in a dangerous situation like before and Han Su didn't have time to cast rescue, Li Shi would have no choice but to use a return scroll. With her reaction speed, it wouldn't be a problem. Crash. Chapter 763. Qin Hui once again felt weak, as if his strength had been drained from his body along with his blood. He roared angrily and slammed his palm toward Li Shi's chest, but it didn't have the same terrifying power as before. Nigong could increase damage, but it depended on one's attributes. Qin Hui's original strength was only 62 points. After being weakened by Qiao Rui's soul rhythm and Li Shi's strength absorption, his strength was temporarily reduced to less than 40 points. As for Li Shi, with her 14 points of strength, her two swords let out a piercing whistle as they slashed towards Qin Hui's neck. He didn't care about anything else and wanted to exchange injury for injury. However, Qin Hui wasn't willing. He immediately withdrew his hand and quickly retreated with the tip of his foot. With a ripping sound, the clothes in front of his chest were cut open by the blade, making him look somewhat embarrassed. Behind him, the butcher swept his scepter across. Although Bai Xiaowen wasn't as good at close combat as Qin Hui, he had the advantage of cooperating well with Li Shi. Moreover, the more crucial the battle, the better they could seize the opportunity. The butcher's attack had been predicted in advance. Bai Xiaowen had predicted that Qin Hui wouldn't dare to exchange blood with Li Shi. It looked as if Qin Hui had taken the initiative to present the back of his head to the butcher's scepter. He had just retreated and was unsteady on his feet, so he couldn't move again to avoid the attack. Qin Hui bent his waist and lowered his head to avoid the attack. The butcher's scepter brushed past the back of Qin Hui's head and scattered his hair bun. After dodging the scepter this time, Qin Hui had a chance to take a breather. After one breath, the true qi in his body circulated, and the old strength was exhausted and the new strength was born. He struck the butcher's fat arm with a backhand palm and broke a section of his arm bone. Qin Hui's strength was indeed tyrannical to be able to injure his opponent with a normal attack. One of the butcher's arms hung limply by his side. The efficiency and power of his waving of the scepter had been greatly reduced. He could only take a defensive stance and not attack. He only needed to maintain the influence of the rotting poison on Qin Hui. Although the damage of the rotten poison was not high, Qin Hui had to constantly circulate his inner force and genuine qi to defend against it. There was no way for him to dodge it. In addition, the decaying speed reduction effect was also very important against Qin Hui. The shadow assassin tried to sneak over and attack again, but Qin Hui saw through it and kicked it into a black mist, dissipating into thin air. At this point in the battle, the person who had dealt the most damage to Qin Hui was actually Han Su. He had just taken a hit from Qin Hui's reverse blood seal, and the reflected damage from his innate skill had caused Qin Hui to lose a few dozen HP. That was all. The 4 members of the White Phoenix squad were still trying to besiege Qin Hui. Now, Li Shi was the main force, and Han Su and the other summon creatures were assisting him. Each of Qin Hui's palms and punches contained an inner strength that could shatter stones. Those weaker summon creatures, such as the skeletons with swords and shields, would explode after being hit by his palms. Qiao Rui's face was pale, and she stopped playing. She had been holding on for too long and had used up too much of her mental strength. Fortunately, even if she stopped playing, the weakening effect would still continue to affect Qin Hui for 10 seconds. Li Shi's absorption effect had also ended, and Qin Hui's strength was once again restored. He laughed loudly. "You want to deal with me with your crooked methods? Die, all of you!" A circle of air exploded, and Qin Hui repelled the siege of the summoned creatures. His palms were unstable, and like a torrential tide, they enveloped Li Shi. He could see that Li Shi was the only one who could keep up with his speed. As long as Li Shi fell, he would be able to come and go as he pleased, standing in an undefeatable position. Han Su didn't make a sound, and raised his shield to meet the attack. He couldn't see through Qin Hui's palm technique, but the large defensive area of the heavy shield had a miraculous effect. Clang clang clang, the sound of metal vibrating rang out. Han Su was like a reef, withstanding the beating of the huge waves, but not retreating a single step. His HP was rapidly decreasing. Because Qin Hui's attack speed was extremely fast, Li Shi only stepped forward and stabbed out with his sword after he had struck out 3 times, using triple chop. Qin Hui chuckled. At this time, Han Su's HP had already hit rock bottom, and he was like a candle in the wind. He leisurely stepped back, dodging Li Shi's triple chop, and his right hand suddenly clenched into a fist. Go to hell. As long as he could kill this guy with the heavy shield, it would be much easier to kill Li Shi. However, Qiao Rui's timely heal raised Han Su's HP. Qin Hui's inverse blood seal burst out, but it didn't take away the last of Han Su's HP. After this heal, Qiao Rui's MP was completely depleted. She could only temporarily withdraw from the battle and drink some water to recover. At this point in the battle, Qin Hui had only received less than 100 points of damage from Han Su's innate ability. Even with so many people surrounding him, they couldn't hurt him at all. However, Bai Xiaowen's face was as calm as ever. His true qi is about to run out. Keep up the pressure. Wrath Claw roared and joined the battle. Everyone was bathed in a blood-red light, and their attack speed and power increased by 20%. According to Bai Xiaowen's calculations, Qin Hui's total true qi was 800 points, and his maximum output was 55 points. What did this mean? Including the recovery of his true qi, Qin Hui could at most attack 15 to 20 times with all his strength before his inner qi was exhausted. Qin Hui's Blood God Sutra was incomplete, and his true qi recovery speed was very slow. He could only recover 2.5 points of true qi per cycle, which could be understood as breathing. It was completely insufficient for his output. Therefore, Bai Xiaowen's strategy from the beginning was to exhaust Qin Hui's true qi. Whether it was the butcher's rotting toxin or the summoned creatures, they were all exhausting Qin Hui's HP. Using actual HP to exchange for true qi points could also be understood as Qin Hui's MP, and MP. It seemed like a loss, but in fact, it wasn't a loss at all. How many summoned creatures did Bai Xiaowen have? Moreover, he had 3 teammates. They were only facing one Qin Hui. Qin Hui's palm hit the Wrath Claw, and the latter somersaulted. However, the Wrath Claw quickly got up, bared its fangs, and continued to charge forward. It continued to attack Qin Hui. If his true qi was full, Qin Hui's palm would have been enough to cripple the Wrath Claw or even kill it instantly. Qin Hui's expression changed slightly. He knew his own situation. He didn't have much true qi left, and relying on the cycle of breathing in and out to recover 2.5 points of true qi every day was really like trying to put out a burning cart with a cup of water. Immediately, Qin Hui adopted a stalling tactic. He wanted to use the blood shadow perplexing steps to dodge the attack and slowly recover his true qi. However, Bai Xiaowen was already prepared for this. The skeleton warrior and the butcher, who had low HP, rushed forward to intercept him without fear of death. The skeleton warrior brandished its greatsword and collided with Qin Hui's body, causing him to stagger slightly. The greatsword left a shallow wound on his body. Everyone was excited. This was the first time Qin Hui had received direct damage. Under Bai Xiaowen's control, the summoned creatures attacked one after another. The undead demon arcane master's lightning strike finally landed. This time, it didn't dodge. Chapter 764. Taking advantage of Qin Hui's unstable footing and stunned by the lightning strike, Bai Xiaowen controlled the Wrath Claw to suppress him. However, Qin Hui had been through hundreds of battles, so he immediately came to his senses. If he was crushed by this giant wolf, the consequences would be dire. Even if he didn't die, he would lose a layer of skin. Immediately, Qin Hui took a deep breath and channeled his remaining Blood God Sutra true qi into his Qinggong, blood shadow perplexing track. Leaving behind a bloody shadow, he dashed forward again. However, this time, the distance he covered was very short, only about 3 meters. He was still within the butcher's melee range and was still affected by the decaying toxin. Qin Hui felt a little tired. Without the protection of his internal energy, the decaying toxin was slowly but surely eating away at his HP. At this point, he could only rely on his basic attributes to fight. It was difficult for him to use inverse blood seal and blood shadow perplexing track. Even the last blood shadow perplexing track couldn't save Qin Hui's life. At this point, he was equivalent to an agility-based boss from another dimension. Moreover, he was a boss that didn't have any toughness skills or extra HP, so he couldn't use any skills. If there was anything worth praising, it would be Qin Hui's melee combat specialty. His passive skill, Technique Master, didn't require true Qi to use. However, this advantage wasn't enough to save his life. As Bai Xiaowen cast the talisman, Qiao Rui joined the battle again and activated Mind Cage. The summoned creatures and Li Shi began to attack furiously. Qin Hui's remaining 400 HP only lasted for a few seconds before it was depleted. At the moment when he was about to die, Bai Xiaowen also gave the order to retreat. Han Su and Li Shi retreated at the same time, leaving only the Butcher, Skeleton Warrior, and other creatures with low HP to hack Qin Hui to death. I don't accept this. Qin Hui roared at the sky. Using his remaining strength, he sent the Skeleton Warrior flying with a punch. Then, he bent his elbow and smashed the Butcher's fat belly. The Skeleton Warrior exploded, and the Butcher died. Qin Hui was also slashed by the Skeleton Swordsman's iron blade. His HP was depleted, and he fell to the ground, dead. The moment Qin Hui fell, the 4 members of the White Phoenix squad also sat down powerlessly on the ground. This battle was unprecedentedly tragic. Almost all of Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures were killed. Han Su and Li Shi, the 2 melee fighters, were also in danger many times. Bai Xiaowen had been maintaining shared life with the Butcher all this time, and his HP had dropped dangerously low. The reason Bai Xiaowen maintained life sharing and shared the damage with Butcher was so that Butcher's rotting toxin could last longer. Qin Hui was the only one here, so Butcher's slaughterhouse's passive HP regeneration was not effective. After Qin Hui's true Qi was exhausted, Bai Xiaowen disconnected the life-sharing link. Otherwise, if Qin Hui had killed the Butcher with his final blow, Bai Xiaowen would have been killed as well. This boss is so hard to defeat, Li Shi said. Yes, after all, it's a level 10 boss, and Qin Hui has cultivated the Blood God mantra. I'm afraid it's a rare boss. Bai Xiaowen did not want to destroy the team's confidence, so he analyzed, a level 10 rare boss should be equivalent to a level 7 or 8 lord. The bosses in the Sword Song realm all have cheats and are especially difficult to deal with. So, our squad was able to kill Qin Hui. Our strength has been verified. With our configuration, if we are well prepared, we have a high chance of defeating a level 8 lord in other realms. Hearing Bai Xiaowen's words, his teammates were relieved. Let's open the treasure chest first. This battle score is level A, so we have 3 chances to draw cards. Bai Xiaowen pressed his palm on the treasure chest and silently opened it. For the awakened, opening treasure chests and drawing cards after a tiring battle was the best way to comfort themselves. A brilliant golden light flashed, and a total of 48 gold cards were unfolded. Li Shi said, "You guys draw." I was the one who opened the 2 elders' treasure chests just now. She was already addicted to drawing cards. Bai Xiaowen nodded and was the first to click on the gold card. You have obtained a special item, Blood God Mantra Rubbings. It was a slightly dirty piece of animal skin. There were rows of tiny characters on it, and there were also pictures of the meridians of the human body. Blood God Mantra Rubbings, special item. After use, there is a chance to obtain a special skill, Blood God Mantra, internal strength. Are we that lucky? The 3 members of the White Phoenix squad were all excited. Everyone had fully witnessed how strong the Blood God Mantra was, or rather, the cheat-like characteristics of internal strength. To put it bluntly, even if there was a chance to cultivate a second or third-rate internal strength in the Sword Song realm, every awakened would fight over it. What's more, the status of the Blood God Mantra was no small matter. It was like the 9 Yin Sutra to the legend of the Condor heroes, and the 9 Yang Sutra to the Heavenly Sword and Dragon Saber. They were all top-notch skills in the realm. Don't be so excited. How can there be such a good thing? Bai Xiaowen shook his head helplessly and pointed at the small words at the back of the Blood God Mantra Rubbings. Description: To cultivate the blood god mantra, you need to completely control the qi and blood in your body, stop them from flowing, and experience the moment of life and death. Only then will there be a chance to succeed. If you don't have the ability to control qi and blood, it is recommended to find someone who has mastered the blood god mantra and use it with their help and guidance. In other words, people like us who know nothing about internal strength will not be able to cultivate the blood god mantra if we use this rubbings rashly, Bai Xiaowen said. By the way, Gu Yulian said that our meridians are all blocked, so we can't cultivate internal strength, Li Shui said. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. The description on this rubbing says that there's a chance to obtain a special skill, blood god mantra after use. This means that it has the ability to ignore the blocked meridians and allow us to learn internal strength. The real difficulty lies in the cultivation conditions. Correspondingly, if Bai Xiaowen did not obtain the rubbings, but opened the jade bed and found the original text of the blood god mantra engraved on it, he would definitely not be able to cultivate it successfully. This also involved the problem of ownership of the spiritual realm's treasures. The rubbings were spoils of war and were fundamentally different from the original text. Yes, if we want to stop the flow of qi and blood, we'll become a dead person. How can we cultivate then? Li Shui said, puzzled. Bai Xiaowen said, the rubbings have already given a hint to find someone who has mastered the blood god mantra to help guide the cultivation. I estimate that a martial artist who has mastered the blood god mantra has the ability to help others control qi and blood and preserve their lives. Then, in the sword song plane, the only martial artist who has mastered the blood god mantra is probably concubine. Qiao Rui pondered for a moment. It's probably very difficult to cultivate this secret art. It's probably more difficult than the S-rank elite side mission. Bai Xiaowen nodded. That's right. Let's not get our hopes up. First of all, finding concubine is a problem. She has been missing for several months. We can only stay in the sword song plane for 10 days. Secondly, even if we find concubine, what reason does she have to help us guide the cultivation? You know, she's not even willing to teach the blood god mantra to her only disciple, Gu Yulian. It can be seen that she's actually disgusted with this martial art. His teammates nodded silently. After the fierce battle with Qin Hui, everyone realized how abnormal the boss of the sword song plane was. Concubine was known as one of the four masters. She had the complete version of the blood god mantra. How many times stronger was she than Qin Hui? It was really too difficult to ask concubine for help. However, this blood god mantra rubbings were the only chance for everyone to come into contact with internal strength. Bai Xiaowen put it away. The second gold card was drawn by Hansu. After opening it, a burst of green light flashed. Set, set, set. Ji Li Shi called out set 3 times before stopping abruptly. After the green light dissipated, what appeared in Hansu's palm was a green crystal. There seemed to be wave-like energy rippling gently inside, and the sparkling green light was constantly changing. Flawless green source crystal, special treasure. After use, it can activate an A-rank awakening skill mission. Hint: green source crystal can only activate an agility type awakening skill mission. Please choose the user carefully. Awakening skill? Bai Xiaowen and Li Shi looked at each other, and both of them were pleasantly surprised. It actually dropped a source crystal. Our luck is too good, Qiao Rui said. Hansu had never heard of an awakening skill. He looked at the three of them with a dumbfounded expression. Bai Xiaowen smiled and explained the meaning of an awakening skill. My understanding of an awakening skill is a strengthened version of a skill. It's very powerful. In our previous plane world, the Aaron plane, there was an awakened hero who used the awakening skill Windward Slash to cut off one of the arms of a leader of the same level, directly crippling him. As he spoke, Bai Xiaowen tilted his head and looked at Qiao Rui, but I only know the words awakening skill. Sister Qiao seems to know more? Qiao Rui shook his head slightly. I don't know much. I only know some information about the source crystal. The source crystal is a special type of treasure. It is actually a quest item that helps awaken awakening skills. Everyone can see the description of the item. The source crystal is divided into 4 types. Red source crystals correspond to strength type skills, green source crystals correspond to agility type skills, yellow source crystals correspond to physique type skills, and blue source crystals correspond to spiritual type skills. The same type of source crystal also has differences in quality. Take the agility type green source crystal as an example. The flawless green source crystal we obtained this time is the highest level I know of. It can activate a skill awakening mission of the highest level, A+. Below the flawless level, there are ordinary green source crystals and broken green source crystals. These 2 types of source crystals can activate a skill awakening mission of the highest level, B+ and C+ respectively. The highest level of awakening mission is A+. Bai Xiaowen looked at the flawless green source crystal. If I choose to use this source crystal, can I freely choose a B or C grade awakening mission? Yes. Qiao Rui gave a definite answer. Bai Xiaowen nodded, very good. This kind of flawless source crystal can truly crush ordinary and broken grades. Bai Xiaowen's meaning was very easy to understand. If the flawless source crystal could only activate an A grade awakening mission, but not B or C grade awakening missions, it would undoubtedly be very disadvantageous for the weaker awakened hunters. On the contrary, it would be more practical to use a source crystal that was 1 grade lower. Then how are the strength type, agility type, physique type, and spiritual type skills differentiated? Li Shui asked. Qiao Rui replied, on one hand, it depends on the damage bonus of the skill. It depends on the basic attribute. If it is a control type skill, it depends on the basic attribute of the judgment. There is also the effect of the skill on attack speed, number of attacks, and critical hit. It is more complicated to explain. For example, Earth Splitter is a strength type skill. Because the damage bonus attribute is strength, the knockback judgment also depends on the user's strength. On the other hand, your triple slash and shadowless slash are agility type skills. There were no restrictions on the awakened hunter's choice of skills. Mages could learn backstab, assassins could learn fireball. But no matter how they mixed it up, the skills themselves still had a clear position. Backstab, a critical hit skill, was an agility type skill, most suitable for assassins. Fireball, a spiritual type skill, was most suitable for mages. Qiao Rui then explained that physique type skills did not only refer to shields and damage reduction skills, but also support skills such as assist that absorb damage for teammates. Qiao Rui's understanding of the source crystal and awakening skills was limited to this. The more in-depth the process, the more likely it would be to violate the confidentiality rules. The family database would not explicitly record it. Bai Xiaowen sighed with emotion and said, that awakened Gui Xia I met before said that he killed his master in the Fuji Snow Mountain to cultivate his awakening skill. I thought he was a Japanese pervert, but now it seems that I misunderstood him. He must have been carrying out the awakening mission and asked to kill his master. That master should also be someone from the spiritual realm, not from Earth. Li Shi curled her lips and said, isn't it perverted to kill your master for the awakening mission? Bai Xiaowen smiled. Killing one's master was indeed difficult to accept, but in Japanese kendo culture, there was a saying that master and disciple fight to the death to pass on the essence of the sword. Gui Xia might have killed his master, but he still called his master master and still respected him. This source crystal was green, corresponding to an agility type skill. Of the 4 people present, only Li Shi had agility type skills, such as triple slash, shadowless slash, and poison burst. It should be noted that the awakening skills referred to the awakening of combat skills. The skills attached to equipment, such as Bai Xiaowen's Desert Eagle's continuous shooting mode, were not included. This flawless green source crystal was assigned to Li Shi. Li Shi chose to use it. During the process, she received a notification from the spiritual realm's rules. She sent it to the team channel and shared it with her teammates. You used a special treasure, flawless green source crystal. The awakening mission is about to begin. Please choose the mission difficulty. You can choose A, B, and C levels. Li Shi asked for Bai Xiaowen's advice and chose the A level. Then, she chose the A+ level, which was the highest among the 3 levels. Mission difficulty determined. Please choose the combat skill you want to awaken. Sure enough, the spiritual realm's rules gave 3 options. Except for brutal charge, the other 3 combat skills were all candidates. Bai Xiaowen thought for a moment. Triple slash is excluded. Poison burst does not have the additional effect of strengthening the special LV, so it should also be excluded. Personally, I think shadowless slash is better. Of course, it depends on which skill you prefer. Li Shi, of course, had unreserved trust in Bai Xiaowen and chose shadowless slash. The A+ level awakening mission, shadowless slash, begins. Chapter 765. The group of people looked at each other. The higher the level, the harder it was to train. Not only did it require proficiency, but in some special stages, it also required a flash of inspiration to complete the promotion. It was already not easy for an awakened to keep up with the level of their main combat specialty. If they wanted to train to level 10 advanced single-handed swordsmanship, they would have to wait until Li Shi reached level 10 himself. It was too late. The difficulty of the level A+ awakening skill mission is different from the normal level A+ mission and even the elite level A+ side mission. It is a continuous mission, so the difficulty may be calculated separately. Bai Xiaowen touched his chin and said thoughtfully. Qiao Rui smiled bitterly. The first step of the mission requires the single-handed swordsmanship to reach level 10. That's too high. Considering that Qin Hui was a level 10 rare boss, this starting requirement is not too outrageous. The reason is that we are a little ahead of ourselves, Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. 3 level 7 heroes and 1 level 6 elite were able to kill a top awakened boss like Qin Hui. They were indeed ahead of themselves. How much is your single-handed swordsmanship now, Shi? Bai Xiaowen asked. Li Shi glanced at it. It's almost level 8. I don't know if it's an illusion, but when I participated in the boss battle in the Sword Song Dimension, my swordsmanship and combat specialties increased very quickly. It's not an illusion. I have the same discovery, Bai Xiaowen said. This is because the bosses in the Sword Song Dimension have extremely high combat specialties. Under such heavy pressure, it's normal for our combat specialties to increase quickly. Not only the 2 of them, but Hansu's shield mastery and Qiao Rui's advanced meditation also increased their proficiency much faster. Bai Xiaowen said, Shi, change your title to Warrior Star. Li Shi was currently using the title Leader Hunter. This title increased the damage of the leader/hero template by 15%. It was very practical, but for the Sword Song Dimension, the boss's evasion was almost maxed out. It was not very useful. The Warrior Star title could speed up the growth of Li Shi's close combat physical specialties. To put it bluntly, it was a 25% growth rate for his single-handed swordsmanship and fighting specialties. That was pretty good. Although the Warrior's Star would lose its effect when Li Shi's swordsmanship reached level 8, Li Shi hadn't reached level 8 yet. It wouldn't be too late to change his title when he reached level 8. After Li Shi changed his title, Bai Xiaowen said, leveling up to level 10 single-handed swordsmanship is very difficult, but it's not impossible. Shi, do you still remember the sword manual we obtained from General Udayo in the Jiajing Plain? Yes. Li Shi's eyes lit up. Since Udayo, a general, has a treasure that can increase his combat specialties, then there's no reason that the Sword Song Dimension doesn't have it. It just depends on whether we're lucky enough to find it. Bai Xiaowen said, use the Warrior's Star to reach level 8 first. I'll think of a way for the remaining 2 levels. Li Shi smiled sweetly and nodded. Qiao Rui clicked on the last gold card. After the golden light faded, a slightly yellowed book was revealed. Hidden Weapon Experience. This is the experience of using hidden weapons by the Blood God Peak's chief, Qin Hui. After use, it can increase combat specialties, advanced shooting level 1. Disappears after use. Speak of the devil. Bai Xiaowen said with a smile. It's a pity that it's shooting specialties, not swordsmanship. Qiao Rui also smiled. However, Qin Hui doesn't seem to use swords much. He has a hidden weapon specialization, so it's normal for him to drop this specialization book. It seems that I'm the only one who's suitable to use this specialization book, Bai Xiaowen said. Old Han, Sister Qiao, there's no suitable loot distribution for this battle. Qiao Rui smiled but didn't say anything. Han Su shook his head seriously. It's okay. Han Su had contributed a lot in this battle. He had taken a lot of damage for Li Shi. What really impressed Bai Xiaowen was Han Su's courage in the face of a strong enemy. Although this was the professional integrity of an MT, there weren't many people who could do this when it came to life and death. Could a level 6 elite block the attack of a level 10 rare boss? When Han Su rushed up, he wasn't sure if he could do it himself, but he still did it. There was only one word to describe him: dedicated. An MT who could do this, no matter how strong he was an excellent teammate. Strength could be cultivated, but character, morality, and even temperament were innate and difficult to change. Moreover, Han Su was a talented awakened. His potential was stronger than an elite of the same level. After resting for a while, Bai Xiaowen stood up again. Okay, the mission is complete. We should go back and find Gu Yulian to hand in the mission. In Qin Hui's treasure chest, there was a special item that was guaranteed to drop: Qin Hui's head. This was obviously a mission item. Gu Yulian's request was to bring back Qin Hui's head. Bai Xiaowen was more careful. He dragged Qin Hui's body out of the arsenal. The arsenal was an important place for the palace masters to cultivate in seclusion. It was of great significance to the Blood God Palace. Leaving a headless corpse to rot and stink would definitely make Gu Yulian unhappy. Fortunately, although the battle was fierce, the pillars of the arsenal were abnormally thick and sturdy. Other than a few cracks, there were no signs of breaking. Bai Xiaowen and his teammates unified their statements. In order not to touch Gu Yulian's sensitive nerves and leave some leeway for themselves, Bai Xiaowen kept the secret that he could freely enter and leave the arsenal. In his statement to Gu Yulian, Qin Hui did not close the door after entering the arsenal. He only sent people to guard it. Bai Xiaowen and his team entered the arsenal after killing the guards. Gu Yulian also did not expect that Bai Xiaowen had a summon creature that could transform into a swarm of bats and open the arsenal's mechanism from inside. Blood God Peak, Palace Masters Hall. Gu Yulian specially summoned all the division masters and asked them to see Qin Hui's head one by one. All the division masters were shocked. They did not expect that Qin Hui's head would be cut off less than a day after his defection. Qin Hui had hidden his strength very well. However, at the end of the Sword Discourse Cliff, he had displayed the martial arts of the Blood God Sutra and escaped with his life despite the poison of the chi-reversing powder. The cultivation that he had displayed was beyond that of any of the division masters. The division masters looked at Bai Xiaowen's master and servant with different expressions. This time, they were truly afraid. Bai Xiaowen's group could kill Qin Hui. Of course, they could also take the head of any of the division masters. Imperceptibly, the division masters began to treat Bai Xiaowen as an equal. He was no longer the son of the Duanshui villa. As a result, Gu Yulian's prestige had greatly increased. The division master's confidence in Gu Yulian had also inexplicably increased. Chapter 766. At the same time, Bai Xiaowen received a notification: Elite Side Mission, Kill the Traitor. Completed. Mission completion, 92%. Evaluation, excellent. You have received 3,000 merit points. Your reputation in the Evil Path faction has greatly increased. Current reputation level, respected. Blood God Palace's 6th generation Palace Lord, Gu Yulian's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability level, familiar. Blood God Palace's 1000 Snake Valley Lord, Ji Mingjue's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability level, indifferent. After a series of notifications, the last 10 or so were basically all changes in favorability. What surprised Bai Xiaowen was that Gu Yulian's favorability had increased surprisingly slowly. After completing an S+ elite side mission, she still hadn't reached the friend level. For Bai Xiaowen, who had always had an extremely high charm value and was extremely lethal to female spirit world figures, this was a bit difficult to accept. Bai Xiaowen secretly wondered if it was because he hadn't recited poetry for a few days. Ji Mingjue's indifference was reasonable. After all, Bai Xiaowen had previously opposed her and killed 2 of her subordinate elders. She had offended him greatly. Congratulations, White Commander. Tianji Peak Lord Xingjiu, Lingyun Peak Lord Ji Ming, and Thousand Snake Valley Lord Ji Mingjue, these 3 division lords all clasped their hands and congratulated him. Ing Jianfan and Quang Wei also clasped their hands, but their expressions were slightly indifferent. As for Kang Qin, she still had some opinions about Bai Xiaowen and only snorted lightly. Bai Xiaowen accepted the congratulations with a calm expression. Gu Yulian saw this scene and was still very relieved. This time, I invited everyone here not only for the matter of Qin Hui's beheading, but also for the latest information about the enemy. Gu Yulian waved her hand and Ji Mingjue nodded and said, this time, the 7 Righteous Path sects have besieged our Blood God Palace. However, the ones we really need to pay attention to are the leaders of the 7 sections. Currently, it has been confirmed that 6 of the 7 sects division lords will participate in this battle. The division lords all revealed a surprised expression. They more or less knew some information about the enemy, but they didn't expect the 7 major sects to be so determined this time. Bai Xiaowen was even more shocked. He finally understood why the White Phoenix squad was so strong, but the main mission was still to participate in the siege of the Blood God Palace. To put it bluntly, it was just for fun. It turned out that the scale of this Jianghu dispute had reached such a level. The leaders of the 7 sects were probably all top leaders. They wouldn't be any weaker than Qin Hui, would they? Given how much the 4 elders of the Infinite Sword sect respected their sect leader, Bai Xiaowen speculated that the 7 sect leaders probably had the strength of a lord. If that was the case, it would be too terrifying. At this time, Ji Mingjue had already reported the names of the 6 great sect leaders. Aside from the Shaolin sect, the other 6 righteous sects had also sent their sect leaders to participate. Moreover, although Shaolin sect did not send their sect leader, abbot, they still sent the head of Arhat Hall, Great Master Qingyuan. Great Master Qingyuan was one of the most senior monks in Shaolin sect. He was also good at martial arts, and his strength was not much weaker than the other 6 sect leaders. Ji Mingjue specifically mentioned the sect leader of the Infinite Sword sect, Zui Yunqian, who was also the instigator of this operation. Gu Yulian smiled and said, White Commander, remember this Zui Yunqian. This person is very ambitious and greedy. I estimate that the tragedy at the Broken Water Villa was most likely done by the elders of the Infinite Sword sect under his instructions. Several sect leaders looked over, so Bai Xiaowen naturally had to express his position. In this battle, I must take the head of that old man Guzhen. If it was really Zui Yunchuan's instructions, I will kill him even if I have to risk my life. Gu Yulian nodded and said, don't worry. Although the other side is powerful, the Blood God Palace is also your backing. She paused for a moment and said to Ji Mingjue, Valley Master Ji, where do you think we should start the decisive battle with the righteous Wulin? Ji Mingjue had already studied this and said, there are 2 suitable battlefields. One of them is the Sword Discourse Cliff, which is easy to defend and hard to attack. Moreover, there are cliffs and valleys, which are easy to ambush. Before he could finish his words, the other division leaders frowned. Ing Jianfan said coldly, no, the Sword Discourse Cliff is located on the Blood God Peak, which is an important place for the Divine Palace. If the enemy attacks here and sets fire, the Divine Palace's 100 years of foundation will be destroyed. Ji Mingjue said, then only the Sword Cleansing Valley is suitable. She spread out the map of the Yan Mountain area and pointed at the Sword Cleansing Valley. Behind the Sword Cleansing Valley is the Tianji Peak, and then the Blood God Peak. We can meet the enemy at the foot of the Tianji Peak and set up a poison array in the Sword Cleansing Valley, which will become the enemy's burial ground. The Tianji Peak master, Xing Jiu, stroked his beard and said, "That's right. We can't let the enemy occupy the Tianji Peak. This is an important place for the Divine Palace. If it is occupied by the righteous Wulin, the loss will be too great." Everyone looked at Ing Jianfan. There was no doubt that no matter where the battle was, the battlefield would be a mess. The destructive power of a Wulin master was very shocking. Ing Jianfan said faintly, "Okay, the Sword Cleansing Valley it is." Ji Mingjue was waiting for him to say this. Hearing this, she said cheerfully, "Okay, then I will send the servants of the Thousand Snake Valley to the Sword Cleansing Valley to arrange the poison array. When the time comes, I hope Valley Master Ing will cooperate." Ing Jianfan glanced at her. "I'm afraid the poison array won't be of much use. You have a fierce reputation, how can the enemy not be prepared? I heard that the head of the Huijian sect, Nan Wangchen, is proficient in the Qi Huang art. She is your nemesis." Ji Mingjue snorted, her face full of conceit. "The poison that I have painstakingly studied for many years is not that easy to cure. No matter how powerful Nan Wangchen is, she won't be able to make the antidote in time." It was a pity that the Blood God Peak's vitality was greatly damaged. Otherwise, the elite troops formed by hundreds of crossbowmen would be a force that could not be underestimated. Together with Ji Mingjue's poison array, they would be even more effective. Bai Xiaowen concluded that there was a difference between the Wulin disputes in the Sword Song Plain and the war between countries. The main reason was that the number of people participating was small. It was different from other plains where there were tens of thousands of people participating in the war. In the Sword Song Plain, there were only a few hundred masters from the various sections. The Blood God Palace was the party that was going to fight. Including all the masters and servants of the 3 peaks and 4 valleys, there were less than 1,000 of them. Under such circumstances, the influence of an individual's strength was greatly magnified. Moreover, the chivalrous style of the Sword Song Plain was particular about one-on-one duels. Bullying with numbers would be looked down upon. For example, before the righteous Wulin gained up on someone, they would often shout, "There is no need to talk about Jianghu morality when dealing with this demon." It could be seen that one-on-one duels were a kind of Jianghu morality. Everyone discussed for a while more, then said their goodbyes and left. This Blood God Palace token was a summoning tool, and the Blood God token that Gu Yulian gave him was a symbol of status and power. The equipment list on the 3rd page was filled with gold equipment. Most of them were loose wind sword, golden ring blade, and so on. Although they were also standard equipment and did not have any additional skills, the additional attack power of these weapons was very high. It was even higher than Li Shi's rebel army commander's sword. The exchange price wasn't too expensive either, 3,000 merit points for one item. Other than weapons, there were also gold-ranked defensive equipment such as heavenly silk clothes, deerskin boots, and so on. The last page was about specialty products, which was also the column that Bai Xiaowen was most interested in. Special 100-year ginseng, a special 100-year ginseng. After using it, you will receive 4 free attribute points. Requires 4,000 merit points. Qi replenishing soup, a decoction made from a variety of herbs. After drinking it, it can permanently increase the recovery speed of spiritual power by 10%. Requires 4,000 merit points. Bone strengthening pill, a precious pill made from the bones of deer and tiger. After drinking it, it can permanently increase the upper limit of HP by 10%. Requires 4,000 merit points. There are so many good things. The 4 members of the White Phoenix squad were drooling as they closed the exchange list. Although there were many good things, the prices were also very high. They had to make a choice. Bai Xiaowen calculated. The squad currently had 5,000 merit points. They first exchanged for 5 jars of century-old flower eagle. After spending 1,000 merit points, they were left with 4,000 merit points. Next was the battle between good and evil. Unlike killing Qin Hui, the Black Guard, and other traitors, killing enemies like the Good Wulin could directly give merit points. Even the elite disciples would be given a small amount of merit points. Moreover, after defeating the Good Wulin, Gu Yulian's position would be stabilized. The B-rank hero side quest Master of the Divine Palace would also be completed. There would also be a reward of merit points. When they had enough merit points, they would consider what items to exchange for. In the following time, Bai Xiaowen, as the new manager of the Blood God Peak, fully participated in Gu Yulian's battle conference. The advantage of this identity was that Bai Xiaowen's every opinion would be taken seriously. On the same day, the White Phoenix squad followed Gu Yulian to the Sword Cleansing Valley. At the foot of the Lingyun Peak opposite, they could see clusters of bonfires. That was the temporary camp of the 7 righteous Wulin. The righteous Wulin prided themselves on being open and above board. They disdained to attack at night. They would wait until the next morning when the sun rose before continuing their march. At this time, they had already broken through the Thousand Snake Valley, Thunder Valley, and Lingyun Peak. Next, they would break through the Sword Cleansing Valley and Tianji Peak. Then they would be able to reach the main hall of the Blood God Peak. When the 7 righteous Wulin joined forces, their strength on the surface surpassed the Blood God Palace. Especially when the Dark Concubine was not present. They also did not need to play any tricks. If they marched openly, they would naturally win. The next morning, the experts of the 7 righteous Wulin had eaten their fill and marched towards the Sword Cleansing Valley. The sentries of the Sword Cleansing Valley immediately discovered the enemy and rang the alarm bell. Among the righteous Wulin below, someone mocked, "These demon bastards, are they ringing the bell to announce their death?" The crowd burst into laughter. A thin middle-aged man in a moon-white robe laughed and said, "This death bell is annoying." While speaking, the man raised his hand and a stream of light shot out, pointing directly at the Blood God Palace sentinel who rang the bell. "Wong!" A clear metallic sound rang out as the hidden weapon that was flying towards the alarm bell was knocked away by another hidden weapon that was shot diagonally from the side. The Huanhua Valley Lord, Kang Qin, appeared at the entrance of the valley with a cold expression. "You are the hidden weapon expert of the Jiuhua sect, Li Daoxuan, right?" Attacking a nameless person is indeed the style of the Jiuhua sect. The man in the white robe named Li Daoxuan narrowed his eyes. Fear flashed across his face. "So it is the Huanhua Valley Lord. Today, I will have to ask for your guidance on hidden weapon techniques. You think you are worthy?" Kang Qin snorted. Beside Li Daoxuan, the expert of the Thunder Fire Hall, Lei Qing, said, "I have long heard that the Huanhua Valley Lord, Kang Qin, and the Sword Cleansing Valley Lord, In Jianfan, are husband and wife. We are attacking the Sword Cleansing Valley, and the Huanhua Valley is here to help." In Jianfan appeared and said indifferently, "The 3 peaks and 4 valleys of the Blood God Palace are one. What is so strange about that?" "That's right. Today, I will bury you hypocrites here." Lingyun Peak Master, Ji Ming, shouted. A deep voice supported by inner strength resounded throughout the area. "Everyone, it seems that the demons have gathered here today to fight the final battle in the Sword Cleansing Valley. Everyone, please be careful." The one who spoke was a man in a Taoist robe. He had 3 strands of beard and looked very handsome. A group of disciples surrounded him like stars surrounding the moon. "Who is this person?" Bai Xiaowen stood beside Ng Jianfan and asked. Ng Jianfan did not speak, but his eyes were burning with eagerness to fight. Kang Qin, who was next to him, replied, "Be careful. This Taoist is Xie Qingrong, the head of the Kunlun sect. His yin and yang swordsmanship is extremely exquisite. He is one of the most difficult to deal with in this battle." Because Bai Xiaowen was standing at the front, some of the righteous martial artists who knew him whispered to each other, "Is he young Master Bai?" Among the people of the Thunder Fire Hall, the stout Lei Qing said loudly, "Young Master Bai, you have an irreconcilable enmity with Demon Ing of the Blood God Palace. Why are you helping the evildoer? Yes, a single slip may cause everlasting sorrow. You have fallen into the devil's path and ruined the century-old reputation of the Duanshui Villa, Wuan of the Infinite Sword sect said loudly. Bai Xiaowen sneered, I also thought that it was Ying Jianfan who killed my father. But as early as 2 days ago, I have investigated clearly. It was your Infinite Sword sect who killed my family. Wuan, you old man, you still have the face to say that I have fallen into the devil's path. You righteous hypocrites are even more vicious than the evil sects. Wuan was stunned and then said loudly, that's impossible. There must be a misunderstanding. Boy Bai, don't be instigated by scoundrels. Bai Xiaowen sneered and said, the murderers I have confirmed are Gu Zhen, Zhang Sun Ming, and Yi Shiyuan. They have admitted it themselves. How can it be false? Now that Zhang Sun Ming and Yi Shiyuan have been beheaded, I will behead Gu Zhen today to comfort my father's soul in heaven. As soon as this answer came out, there was a burst of whispers among the crowd of the 7 righteous sections. Many people looked sideways at the crowd of the Infinite Sword sect with suspicion in their eyes. Enough! You with the surname Bai, stop slandering me. In the Infinite Sword sect, Gu Zhen shouted angrily, everyone, don't be deceived by this little devil. He has sided with the Blood God Palace from the beginning. Don't forget that his maid led us to a dead end and was ambushed by the Blood God Palace in the Stone Tablet Valley. How many fellow cultivators did we lose in that battle? It's all thanks to this little bastard. This was Gu Yulian's original plan, but it was indeed very useful. In the eyes of the people who were ambushed, Bai Xiaowen was indeed suspected of colluding with the enemy. What Bai Xiaowen said just now was also regarded as a frame-up by the masters of the righteous sections. Naturally, they no longer believed it. Gu Zhen was still acting. He said loudly, Senior Brother Sect Leader, please seek justice for the murdered Senior Brother Zhang Sun and Martial Nephew Yi. Behind Gu Zhen, an old man with a thin face and an extraordinary bearing nodded slightly. Shiyuan is my disciple. He has been killed by the devil of the evil sections. Naturally, I can't sit by and watch someone slander and ruin his reputation. Boy surnamed Bai, since you admit that you killed my disciple, then I will kill you. You should die without complaint. Obviously, this old man was the sect leader of the Infinite Sword sect, Zui Yunxian. Tu Mingjiao, who was beside Zui Yunxian, hurriedly said, Master, it's not like this. However, before she could finish her sentence, Zui Yunxuan's eyes swept over like cold lightning. The rules of the Infinite Sword sect were very strict. Tu Mingjiao sputtered a few times, but did not dare to argue again. When Bai Xiaowen heard Zui Yunxuan's words, he only responded with a sneer. Old man, the tragedy of the Duanshui Villa is most likely related to you. After I kill the old bastard Gu Zhen, the second person I will kill is you. There was a burst of gasps in the crowd. Zui Yunxian had a revered status in the martial arts world, and his strength was extremely high. Bai Xiaowen, on the other hand, was just a nobody in the martial arts world. By saying such big words, he was leaving no way out for himself. Originally, with Zui Yunxuan's strength and status, if he personally killed Bai Xiaowen, he would be accused of bullying the weak. However, when Bai Xiaowen's words came out, no one could say no to Zui Yunxuan's attack. Next to Lei Qing, a man who was a bit taller and stronger than him said impatiently, Don't waste your breath on these evil cultivators. Let's flatten the sword-cleansing valley first. Kang Qin said in a low voice, This person is the sect leader of the Thunder Fire Hall, Lei Sheng. Next to him is a group of nuns from the Huijian sect. The old nun Wang Chen is the sect leader of the Huijian sect. Strange, the sect leader of the Taishan sect, Ding Chen, did not come. After Lei Sheng, the sect leader of the Thunder Fire Hall, the experts of the 7 righteous sects, as well as the loose cultivators and people from the second and third-rate sects who came to help and make a name for themselves, responded one after another. Lei Sheng waved his hand, and the experts of the Thunder Fire Hall took the lead to attack. Ying Jianfan raised his hand, and 2 teams of crossbowmen separated, shooting out chi-breaking crossbows. When the experts of the Thunder Fire Hall rushed forward, they threw out black beads, which exploded when they hit the ground. Although the explosion didn't cause much damage to martial artists, the explosion caused the soil to fly up, successfully blocking the vision of many crossbowmen. Using this cover, the righteous experts had already rushed over. On this side, the elites of the Blood God Palace also drew their swords, fighting with the righteous experts. Bai Xiaowen's group of 4 also charged into the battlefield. In their eyes, these righteous experts who rushed over were walking merit points. The 4 of them cooperated well, and there was also Bai Xiaowen, the last hit demon. Basically, there weren't any enemies around who wouldn't die from injuries, but they were all killed by him. Bai Xiaowen's Desert Eagle's range also covered the surrounding battlefield. Against these elite martial artists who didn't have any extra life points, the Desert Eagle's first drop of blood was simply terrifying. Even if it didn't hit a vital point, it would still take away more than half of the opponent's life points. Moreover, Bai Xiaowen's Blood Essence Stone's additional 10% critical strike rate didn't stop. After killing 2 righteous experts, Bai Xiaowen finally attracted the attention of the leader. An old martial artist with wrinkled skin like old tree bark, wearing a green robe, ran in front of Bai Xiaowen in a few steps and stabbed out with his sword. Taoist Qingmu of the Kunlun sect? Come and test my sword first. With a light buzzing sound, a phantom flashed by. Ying Jianfan's flying shadow sword had already been unsheathed, and with a few clanking sounds, he slashed sideways and hit Taoist Qingmu's arm, causing blood to gush out. Ying Jianfan sneered and shook his head. Yin-yang swordsmanship is only SOSO. A green shadow flashed, and a deep voice sounded, Ying Jianfan, don't boast shamelessly. Come and test my yin-yang swordsmanship. The sword light was like 2 snakes moving, and the Kunlun sect's leader, Xia Qingrong, had arrived. Ying Jianfan's expression changed, and he quickly swung his flying shadow sword to block Xia Qingrong's attack. Chapter 768. The Kunlun sect was ranked second among the 7 righteous sects, second only to the Shaolin Temple. Its leader, Xia Qingrong, was a level 8 lord. Even though Ying Jianfan was a rare leader, he was still no match for Xia Qingrong. He used the flying shadow swordsmanship with all his might, creating afterimages that surrounded Xia Qingrong and attacked like a tidal wave. However, Xia Qingrong's eyesight was extremely sharp. He had long seen through Ying Jianfan's swordsmanship. He did not use any movement techniques. He just stood firmly on the spot. His sword strikes seemed slow, but each strike was aimed at the flaws in Ying Jianfan's swordsmanship, forcing Ying Jianfan to change his moves. On the surface, Ying Jianfan seemed to be suppressing Xia Qingrong with his swift sword. However, any martial artist could see that Ying Jianfan's frenzied attacks wouldn't last long. When Ying Jianfan's attacks weakened, Xia Qingrong would counterattack fiercely. Ying Jianfan was an expert swordsman, so he naturally knew this. But sometimes, it was one thing to know, but it was another thing to actually face it. He felt that Xia Qingrong was like a compressed spring, and the resistance was getting stronger and stronger. Ying Jianfan was forced to maintain his stance and couldn't retreat. Moreover, Ying Jianfan was arrogant. Even if he was in danger, he wouldn't cry for help. Ding! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Xia Qingrong narrowed his eyes and swung his sword. Clang! A copper coin was sent flying into the sky, disappearing without a trace. Ying Jianfan finally heaved a sigh of relief. He hurriedly took a deep breath and reorganized his stance. If the situation had continued, he would have been defeated in less than 10 moves. The person who attacked was, of course, Kang Qin. Xia Qingrong smiled and said, flower washing and sword washing, the 2 of you are deeply in love. Why don't you come at me together? Kang Qin snorted. Take this. She raised her hands, and dozens of cold stars flew out like a rain of flowers, covering Xia Qingrong's chest. Some of the hidden weapons also sealed off Xia Qingrong's space to dodge. Xia Qingrong exhaled. His robe swelled, and all the hidden weapons were knocked away. The tip of his sword flickered with sword light as he stabbed it toward Kang Qin. Ying Jianfan was originally unwilling to fight 2 against 1, but seeing Kang Qin in danger, he could not sit back and watch. The two division leaders joined forces and fought with the Kunlun sect leader, Xia Qingrong. Bai Xiaowen roughly assessed the situation on the battlefield. Now, there were many experts in the righteous path. Besides Xia Qingrong, there was also Zui Yunxian, the head of the Infinite Sword sect, who was also a suzerain. As for the others, such as Lei Sheng, the head of the Thunder Fire Division, Old Nun Wangchen of the Huijian sect, and Li Daotong of the Jiuhua sect, they were all level 10 leaders. In terms of strength, they weren't any weaker than Qin Hui, and were slightly stronger than the 7 sect masters. Let's not talk about the top experts for now. The leaders of the righteous and evil paths were more or less the same. The real advantage of the Blood God Palace was the elite class. The elites of the 3 peaks and 4 valleys gathered here, which was a lot more than the disciples of the 7 righteous sections. There were also crossbowmen with broken chi crossbows. In this battle, there were close to 100 leader-level experts from both sides. It was a grand scene. The experts of the righteous and evil paths all displayed their strengths. The wind and chi roared in the air, and the sky darkened as sand and pebbles flew. In this kind of situation, Bai Xiaowen and the other 3 could not do much. They could only stick together. Among Bai Xiaowen's summoned creatures, he was too lazy to summon the skeleton sword and shield. He only summoned the butcher, the wrath claw, and the other elite creatures to participate in the battle. Bai Xiaowen pinpointed the location of the Infinite Sword sect and led the White Phoenix team to attack. However, there was a group of people who rushed over first. Most of them wore moon-white robes with lotus patterns embroidered with gold and silver thread. They looked rather flashy. They were the elite disciples of the Jiuhua sect. The battlefield was chaotic, and everyone who met was an enemy. Without announcing their names, the White Phoenix team began to fight with the Jiuhua sect disciples. The White Phoenix team worked well together and immediately displayed high killing efficiency. Li Shi and Han Su charged at the front together with the butcher. The Wrath Claw and other elite summoned creatures supported them. Behind them were the 2 long-range attackers, Qiao Rui and Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen held the Cold Winter Wand and specifically targeted the elite disciples who had not been injured or had lost any HP. Under the effects of advanced meditation, no disciple could dodge frost shards. They were damaged and slowed at the same time. More importantly, enemies with full HP would trigger the Blood Essence Stone's first HP effect and receive additional true damage. Although Frost Shards was only a basic spell, it could reduce the Jiuhua sect's elite disciples' HP by at least 30%. The Butcher's Rotting Poison AoE, coupled with Frost Shards, slowed the enemy down once more. Then, Li Shi's melee attacks covered the damage. Qiao Rui's Shattering Note could also take out enemies that were close to death. The Jiuhua sect's elite disciples had no room to dodge at all. They were cut down like wheat by the White Phoenix team. They were turned into scattered achievement points and distributed to the members of the White Phoenix team. Compared to killing, the righteous disciples of the Sword Song realm are far inferior. But Bai Xiaowen thought to himself, the Awaken's killing techniques were honed through countless realms. The Jiuhua sect disciples in front of him probably didn't have many kills on their hands. Suddenly, a white figure flashed. A long sword flashed with cold light and pierced towards Bai Xiaowen. The white shadow was obviously using a high-level Qinggong. It was as if there were lotus flowers under his feet, which were unpredictable. Even Han Su and the summoned creatures did not pose any hindrance to him. Li Shi hurriedly took 2 steps back and crossed his swords. Metal clashed. Li Shi took a step back. The figure of the attacker swayed slightly. Only then did Bai Xiaowen see clearly that the attacker was a young man in his 20s. He was handsome, but his eyebrows were like an upside-down character, making him look fierce and arrogant. His eyes seemed to spit fire. He yelled angrily, "I am Li Yinhua, the eldest disciple of the Jiuhua sect master. Demons from the demonic sect killed my fellow disciples. Die!" Bai Xiaowen had already seen him with his insight. This was a level 7 boss. His strength was on par with Yi Shiyuan. He couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense or reason with Li Yinhua. With a wave of his hand, Li Shi attacked with her twin swords. From the left and right, the skeleton warrior and kits both surrounded him. One had high strength, the other had high agility. They sealed off Li Yinhua's space to dodge, forcing him to meet Li Shi head-on. Bastards from the Blood God Palace. You only know how to win with numbers. Li Yinhua snorted angrily. His footwork changed like a blooming lotus. For some reason, neither the skeleton warrior nor kits could stop him. Li Yinhua broke out of the encirclement and approached Bai Xiaowen. His long sword went straight for Bai Xiaowen. Bai Xiaowen received a notification. Based on your insight talent, you've received the corresponding skill information. Lotus steps. When using this Qinggong, your movement speed will increase by 20%. Your dodging rate will increase by 20%. You'll also ignore the size of your body. Requires at least 10 true qi to activate. It turned out that this Qinggong had an effect similar to phase walk. No wonder the summoned creatures couldn't stop him. Before Li Yinhua's sword hit him, his body suddenly froze. Qiao Rui raised his hand and cast Mind Cage, temporarily trapping him. Li Shi caught up from behind. The rebel army commander's sword stabbed toward Li Yinhua's back. Qi! The moment the long sword stabbed, Li Yinhua broke free from the control of Mind Cage and tried to dodge the attack. He was stabbed by the sword and lost nearly 100 HP. However, after Li Shi's sword succeeded, he activated Triple Slash. With 3 slashes, Li Yinhua's HP was almost depleted. Swish! 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 3 black shadows shot past. Bai Xiaowen immediately shouted, "Watch out!" Li Shi only had time to take half a step back before he was hit by the hidden weapons. 3 wounds appeared on his body, dripping with blood. Fortunately, he was agile and had fast reflexes. He managed to avoid being hit. The wind whistled as another 3 hidden weapons shot toward him. Bai Xiaowen was prepared this time. He summoned a skeleton warrior in advance and blocked in front of Li Shi. With a series of crackling sounds, 2 of the 3 hidden weapons hit. The last one was dodged by the skeleton warrior's racial passive ability, Hollow Skeleton. However, the skeleton warrior couldn't withstand these 2 hidden weapons. With a crash, it turned into bone dust and scattered on the ground. Bai Xiaowen saw clearly that the person who shot the hidden weapons was Li Daoxin, an elder of the Jiuhua sect. He was flying toward them quickly. With a wave of his hand, he shot another hidden weapon. His goal was to protect Li Yinhua, the eldest disciple of the sect master. Moreover, there was an acquaintance beside Li Daoxin, elder Gugu of the Infinite Sword sect. Behind Gugu were a few leaders. They were all elders of the 7 orthodox sections. This group of masters had gathered together to find Bai Xiaowen. It seemed that their goal was quite clear. It's probably because we killed too quickly that we attracted everyone's attention. It's also possible that the old fellow Guzhen felt uneasy and specially found a few experts to help him eliminate the problem at its roots. Bai Xiaowen thought to himself. They were just a few high-level leaders. In terms of strength, they were only on par with Ng Jianfan. Of course, Bai Xiaowen wasn't afraid. Instead, he wanted to use this opportunity to kill Gugu. Li Daoxin, the Jiuhua sect's hidden weapon expert, rushed over and shouted, "Bai Xiaowen, if you dare to kill Martial Nephew Yinhua, the Jiuhua sect will never forgive you." Bai Xiaowen didn't care about this kind of threat at all. He waved his hand, and a frost shard took away Li Yinhua's remaining HP. At the same time, he collected the first leader's treasure chest of this battle. After killing Li Yinhua, the whole team received 750 honor points. Li Daoxin was furious. Behind him, Gugu said gloomily, "Don't be sad, brother Li. That little dog of the Bai family is cruel and cold-blooded. We'll take his head and avenge Martial Nephew Li." The high-level leaders behind him all comforted him. At the same time, they cursed Bai Xiaowen for being cruel. Li Daoxin's anger was only 30%. The other 70% was just for show. He took a deep breath and said, "Please help me stall that little dog." Don't let him run away. My hidden weapons will catch that little dog off guard. I'll definitely take his life. Exactly. Chapter 769. Facing a total of 4 leaders and Li Daoxuan in the distance, Bai Xiaowen's face was calm. He softly spat out a word in the team channel. Sell. This was an agreed-upon secret signal, and it was also a relatively special tactic of the White Phoenix squad. After the 3 teammates heard this word, they all withdrew from Bai Xiaowen's side, leaving Bai Xiaowen to face the 5 enemy leaders alone. Even the summon creatures were dismissed. Only Qiao Rui played the soul rhythm with his flute. Gu Jin was a little puzzled, but this kind of opportunity was fleeting. His body's instinctive movements were faster than his thoughts. His sword wrapped in a little cold stars, 6 virtual and 1 real, like a plum blossom blooming, shrouding Bai Xiaowen's chest. A bald old man with cold eyes, holding a 1-legged bronze staff that flickered with golden light, rushed towards Bai Xiaowen's back. In his hand, the heavy 1-legged bronze man moved freely like a lantern. A blow with a strong wind pointed at Bai Xiaowen's back. Another chubby middle-aged man, who looked like a rich man, used a golden saber. The saber drew a waterfall and slashed at Bai Xiaowen's neck. There was also a tall and thin old man with deeply sunken temples. He exhaled, and a big handprint containing a tremendous force blasted at Bai Xiaowen's abdomen. In the distance, Li Daoxuan waved his hands at the same time. 2 black shadows shot out, drawing 2 slight arcs, respectively hitting Bai Xiaowen's left and right temples. The 2 hidden weapons were launched at an extremely fast speed, breaking through the speed of sound. The black shadows arrived first, and the sharp whistling sound of breaking air followed from a distance. The 5 leader-level powerhouses of the Sword Song realm all used their unique skills to blast Bai Xiaowen into pieces. It was no exaggeration to say that under the enhancement of internal force, the attacks of any of the 5 were unbearable for the awakened. It would be fine if they didn't hit the vital points, but if they did, it would be very easy to trigger an instant kill. Even with Qiao Rui's soul rhythm weakening effect, there was only 1 or 2 stacks of weakness, and it was difficult to reduce the damage. Even if they couldn't kill Bai Xiaowen instantly, the combined force of the 5 of them was enough to kill him. Bai Xiaowen's eyes were calm. Facing the attacks of 5 people, he only activated Adjudicator's determination and moved to the side, trying his best not to let the enemy's attacks hit his vitals. Chi! Boom! Duo! Wang! The attacks of the 5 chief-level experts landed on Bai Xiaowen almost simultaneously. The damage absorption shield was instantly shattered, and Bai Xiaowen was sent flying like a withered leaf, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Success! Gu Jin was overjoyed. Even the 4 greats of the pugilistic world would not be able to survive the combined attack of 5 people. However, Bai Xiaowen's figure fell to the ground, rolled, and stood up again. The flames in his eyes burned even hotter. How is that possible? Gu Jin and the other chief-level experts' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. In the next second, they saw Bai Xiaowen raise his right hand high, and a cluster of flames burned in his palm. Pain potential. Blood rage. Symbiosis, borrowing agility, target Keats. Grass fist ancient martial art, super large snakeworm, activate. The blazing flames surged out and quickly covered an area of tens of meters in front of Bai Xiaowen. The raging flames of the super-large snakeworm purified all the enemies in the area with its strong impact and continuous burning heat. The damage output of Bai Xiaowen's super-large snakeworm had reached its peak. First, it was the pain potential. Bai Xiaowen received more than 1,000 points of mixed damage from the attacks of the 5 experts, and the actual damage was 700 plus. Fortunately, the damage was distributed to the butcher after calculating the damage reduction ratio. Together with the shield skill of Bai Xiaowen's necklace, he was able to survive, and this was under the condition that his vitals had not been hit. However, Bai Xiaowen received 70 points of strength in an instant, and his strength had reached 100 plus. This was a monster-level stat that only a max-level strength-type chief level or a high-level strength-type overlord would have. Moreover, Bai Xiaowen also activated Blood Rage, which strengthened the damage of his next normal attack or skill. The additional damage was equivalent to the damage received at this stage. What did this mean? Over 700 points of additional damage. In order to ensure the speed of this move, Bai Xiaowen deliberately used Symbiosis, borrowing Keith's agility. After drinking the blood of the Vampire Lord and completing his evolution, Keith's agility had reached 48 points. Including his new equipment, the Wandering Swordsman's Windbreaker, which increased his agility by 5 points, he had a total of 53 points. He was the most agile of Bai Xiaowen's summons, and was even higher than the Wrath Claw's 50 points of agility. Borrowing 50%, that was 27 points, rounded to the nearest whole number. Thus, when Bai Xiaowen activated the super-large snake worm, his agility had reached a high of 54 points, close to the value of a high-level agility-type chief level. Therefore, the speed of this gigantic serpent spear was extremely fast. Just to be safe, Bai Xiaowen activated his deterrence skill at the same time, causing the leaders who were attacking him to be stunned at the same time. He had already figured out the resistance of the Sword Song World's leader to control skills. It relied entirely on internal strength and true chi to break through the control. The original 3 seconds of control would be reduced to a third or even less than a second. It was terrifying. Moreover, the high-level leaders of the Sword Song plane could also use their internal energy to defend against damage. Even when they were being controlled, the true chi in their bodies could still circulate to defend and reduce damage. But so what? Bai Xiaowen wanted to defeat all of them with brute force. He wanted to rely on his sky-high damage output to kill these few leaders. With Bai Xiaowen's monstrous 100+ strength and Blood Rage's additional 700 points of damage, the initial impact, physical, damage of this giant snake roar was close to 1,000 points. Not to mention, there was also the flame burn, magic, damage that lasted for 3 seconds. With Bai Xiaowen's 74 points of spirit, it was still very impressive. The leaders seemed to have been sent flying by a large flaming hand. They wanted to open their mouths and scream, but the flames poured into their mouths. They did not even last for 3 seconds. The 3 leaders closest to them turned into charred corpses, leaving behind only 3 golden treasure chests. It was worth mentioning that Guzhen had escaped this disaster. This old man had dealt with Bai Xiaowen twice. He had always been wary of Bai Xiaowen, who had special skills. In the Battle of the Thousand Snake Valley, Bai Xiaowen killed 2,000 Snake Valley elders and forced poisonous Han Guanyin to retreat. Later, in the Battle of the Nameless Valley, Bai Xiaowen killed Zhang Sunming and Yi Shiyuan, forcing Guzhen to flee in panic. Other righteous experts would look down on Bai Xiaowen because he was relatively young and did not cultivate internal strength. However, Guzhen would not. When they besieged Bai Xiaowen but failed to kill him, the moment Bai Xiaowen flipped over and got up, Guzhen felt that something was wrong and took a few steps back. Bai Xiaowen used deterrence at the same time and froze Guzhen in place. The 3 leaders in front of Guzhen blocked the attack and did not completely take the first wave of the most ferocious initial impact damage. He was only burned for 3 seconds by the flames. He managed to survive by circulating his internal strength with all his strength to resist. However, Guzhen was also in a sorry state. His body was sent flying, and his body was charred black as he rolled on the ground a few times. He was in a state of burn where all his attributes were reduced by half. The warriors of the Sword Song plane were very wary of getting injured. This meant that the circulation of their internal strength would be hindered and their strength would be greatly reduced. Because of this, these leaders did not see through Bai Xiaowen's tactic of showing weaknesses. In their knowledge, there was no such tactic of taking damage first, stimulating one's potential, and then counterattacking. This was an obstacle in their knowledge. Not only were the 3 leaders killed, but the nearby disciples of the Jiuhua sect were also caught in the crossfire. They were licked by the tongues of fire and either died or were crippled. The surroundings were silent. Li Daoxuan's eyes were wide open. He was far away, so he was not hurt by the giant snake. However, the terrifying power of the flames that almost hit him in the face made his heart tremble. At the same time, he felt lucky. "This is the celestial sun art?" Li Daojian murmured. The three elders of the righteous faction who were on the same level as him were vaporized. At this moment, he was panicking. All thoughts of revenge against Bai Xiaowen faded, and he turned to flee. As for the other experts on the battlefield, after noticing the shocking scene, they were also greatly shocked. No one would have thought that a teenager like Bai Xiaowen would actually have such a terrifying burst of power. "That attack just now, it was similar to the Wisdom King of Tanlu's style," said Lei Sheng, the master of the Thunder Fire Division. "That's right. Judging from that attack alone, its power is close to that of the Four Ultimate. Does this kid surnamed Bai have the strength of a top martial artist at such a young age?" Nun Wangchen of the Huijian sect frowned slightly. "Don't be too surprised. This kid cultivates the exotic martial arts, which are very different from the martial arts of the Central Plains. He can only use such a powerful magical technique once at most." Sui Yinxian, the head of the Infinite Sword sect, snorted softly. The sword in his hand drew a mysterious arc and cut the throat of an elder of the Blood God Palace. "Let's kill all the bandits of the Blood God Palace and capture this kid before asking him in detail." Several masters of the righteous faction nodded in silence and joined the battle again. At this time, although Bai Xiaowen had used his most powerful burst of power, he was still in the state of pain potential and symbiotic agility. His strength was over 100, and his agility was over 50. Before the 70 points of strength given by the pain potential disappeared, he was a real high-level battlefield lord. Moreover, Bai Xiaowen's low HP had been sucked back by the blood essence stone's thirst for blood. He could even feed back to the butcher and pull up the big fatty's HP, whoosh. Bai Xiaowen put away the cold winter wand and pulled out the desert eagle. He raised the gun with both hands and began to shoot at the elite righteous faction martial artists. 3 shots took away a life. If he attacked a vital point, he would take a life with 1 shot. It was super fierce. If it was a one-on-one fight, these high-level elite martial artists could still dodge Bai Xiaowen's bullets with their lightness skills. However, this was a chaotic battlefield. After Bai Xiaowen's agility increased, his shooting speed became faster and the angle became more tricky. The speed of the bullets even exceeded the speed of sound. Those high-level elite martial artists were shot one after another before they could identify the location of the bullets by hearing the sound. The only thing they could do was to rely on a hint of warning in their hearts when the bullets were about to hit their bodies. They could barely twist their vital points and use their inner strength to resist the bullets at the same time. His 3 teammates and summon creatures rushed back like a tide. Li Shi even started to attack Bai Xiaowen until he was low HP. He killed 1 person with 2 strikes. This was the strategy of the White Phoenix squad mentioned earlier. The core idea was to sell out Bai Xiaowen. To be precise, they wanted to use Bai Xiaowen to lure out the opponent's ultimate move. Then, Bai Xiaowen would enter a terrifying complete state and launch a counterattack. This demon named Bai is so strong. Be careful of his hidden weapons. More than half of the Jiuhua sect disciples were slaughtered. They all fled and didn't dare to stop Bai Xiaowen. However, Bai Xiaowen aimed at Gu Zhen, who was mingling in the crowd and limping, and chased after him relentlessly. The Jiuhua sect disciples cursed. There were so many people, so why was he only targeting them? Originally, the righteous faction had the upper hand in the battle. However, after Bai Xiaowen's sudden emergence and explosive power comparable to the Lord's in a short period of time, they managed to reverse some of the disadvantages. Suddenly, thick smoke rose from the Blood God Peak in the far north, and flames soared into the sky. Everyone who was fighting fiercely was shocked. They looked in the direction of the Blood God Peak, and the battle stopped. What happened? The main hall of the Blood God Palace is on fire. Gong, gong, gong sounded. Everyone from the Blood God Palace was stunned. This was the signal to retreat. However, everyone in the righteous faction was excited. Lei Sheng, the head of the Thunder Fire Division, laughed loudly. How would you demons from the demonic faction know the art of war? Just as your main force was fighting with us, our comrades from the Taishan sect had already snuck into your most important area. A righteous faction master beside him laughed. Taishan sect did well. They burned down the nest of the demons with fire. The gong sounded continuously. The masters of the Blood God Palace didn't want to continue fighting. They all used their qinggong and quickly retreated. Bai Xiaowen waved his hand and ordered the White Phoenix team to retreat. He had already seen Li Daotong, the head of the Jiuhua sect, and Zui Yunqian, the head of the Infinite Sword sect, quietly rushing in his direction. It seemed that the powerful move just now had attracted the attention of these two sect masters. Especially Li Daotong. As the head of the Jiuhua sect, more than half of his disciples were killed by Bai Xiaowen. He was the righteous faction that suffered the most in this battle. Naturally, he hated Bai Xiaowen to the core. As the Blood God Palace retreated, the righteous faction masters wouldn't let them go. They also used their qinggong and chased after them. The two groups of people, one running and one chasing, had already passed the entrance of the valley and entered the sword-cleansing valley. After the Blood God Palace people passed through a messy stone array, the righteous faction masters had just caught up when suddenly, a sharp siren sounded. There was a sudden change in the stone array. Copper pipes stretched out from the ground and spat out light green fog, which quickly weaved into a poisonous array shrouded in fog. The righteous faction masters breathed in a wisp of green fog and immediately felt dizzy and nauseous. Poison! The bastards of the Blood God Palace have set up an ambush here. Retreat! Shouts could be heard from the poison formation. Release the arrows. Gu Yulian finally showed up. Her beautiful voice sounded. To the righteous faction masters, it was simply a demonic sound. Chapter 770. Blood God Palace, Palace Lord's Throne. A group of servants wearing Tianji Peak uniforms surrounded the Palace Lord's throne and were on high alert. Tianji Peak Lord Xingjiu stood in front of the throne with his eyes slightly closed. How is it? After a while, Xingjiu opened his eyes and asked. Peak Lord, we have used a large amount of stones to seal the secret path behind the throne and poured in sand. Even a rat wouldn't be able to crawl out. A Tianji Peak elder said. Very good. Xingjiu nodded slightly. The Tianji Peak elder said, I didn't expect the rumored secret path entrance to the martial storehouse to be behind the Palace Lord's throne. It is a pity to seal the secret path like this. Xingjiu said lightly, there is more than one secret path entrance. According to Palace Lord Gu, there is a water valve in the heart-cleansing pond that can also lead to the martial storehouse secret path. The righteous faction hypocrites sneaked in through the heart-cleansing pond entrance. Then what about the heart-cleansing pond entrance? The Tianji Peak elder was shocked. Don't worry. The heart-cleansing pond has been poisoned by poisonous guanine and has become a poisonous pond. If anyone dives into the pool, it won't be long before their bones and flesh dissolve and they die an unnatural death. Xingjiu stroked his beard and said, now, the righteous hypocrites hiding in the secret passage, as well as the rebels under Qin Hui, are like rats in a cage. They can't come out no matter what and will only starve to death inside. Of course, after repelling the invasion of the 7 righteous faction sects, we can also open the seal from the outside and properly entertain these uninvited guests. That Tianji Peak elder heavily nodded his head. Although Qin Hui is dead, his influence is endless. The black guards under his command actually took the initiative to collude with the 7 righteous sects, wanting to attack from the inside and destroy the foundation of the Shin Palace. Fortunately, Palace Lord Gu was meticulous and has already seen through their evil plan. Xingjiu smiled. Not only that, Palace Lord Gu also beat them at their own game. He burned firewood in the Sword Discourse Cliff and pretended that the righteous faction had successfully infiltrated. He used this to lead the main force of the 7 righteous faction sects to the poison array set up by poisonous guanine. This time, the 7 righteous faction sects are in big trouble. Who knows how many casualties there will be? Fast, fast. Looking at the arrows shooting out, the experts of the 7 righteous sects in chaos, Guyulian stood on the mountain ridge, her beautiful face not showing the slightest change in expression. A few of the division leaders who had just fought gathered around Guyulian. Palace Master's ingenious plan to lure the enemy deep into the enemy's territory is truly ingenious. The 7 righteous sects will definitely be annihilated this time, Lingyun Peak Master Jiming said. Lingyun Peak had been attacked by the 7 righteous sections. Although the experts had retreated in time, there had still been some casualties. Moreover, many of the pavilions and towers of Lingyun Peak had been burned down. As a peak master, Jiming naturally hated the 7 righteous sects to the bone. Guyulian glanced at him. The White Commander deserves the most credit for discovering the conspiracy of the 7 righteous sects this time. If it weren't for his reminder, I wouldn't have thought that the 7 righteous sects would follow Qin Hui's remnants and infiltrate the secret passage. Then, it would be even more impossible for us to beat them at their own game. Where is he? Reporting to the Palace Lord, the White Commander is on his way. Jiming Ju said with a smile. Speaking of which, the White Commander's battle just now was really in the limelight. I don't know if it was with the help of the mechanism or his own ability, but he was actually able to display a grand martial art concept and burn 3 righteous elders into ashes. With such strength, it's no wonder that he could kill the traitor Qin Hui. Jiming praised. The White Commander is young, but his martial arts and wisdom are all outstanding. It's really a great fortune to have him join the Blood God Palace. Although Kang Qin, In Jianfan and the other division leaders were somewhat ashamed of Jiming's licking dog behavior, what Jiming said was basically true, so they couldn't refute. Bai Xiaowen came to Guyulian's side and saluted. Guyulian smiled gently. You came at the right time. Let's see the miserable end of these righteous hypocrites. They will definitely not dare to covet the Blood God Palace again. At this time, in the stone formation of the sword-cleansing valley, poisonous fog filled the air and rows of broken arrows shot out. Those elite righteous disciples couldn't bear it at all. They were dead and injured and let out waves of miserable cries. The elders with profound skills and the leaders of various sects could barely resist. At the same time, they rushed left and right in the smoke and dust, trying to rush out of the range of the poisonous formation. However, the originally messy stone formation on the ground hid a mystery. It was the 9 palaces formation set up by the Tianji Peak Master, Xing Jiu, which had the ability to confuse the 5 senses. If there was no interference, the 9 palaces formation wouldn't be enough to trap so many masters. But now, under the poisonous fog, arrows, smoke, and other dangers, the stone formation's confusing effect was fully played. The righteous masters were like headless flies for a while, but they couldn't rush out. Will this plan be able to completely annihilate the invading martial arts experts? Bai Xiaowen asked. The division leaders next to him looked sideways. This young man from the righteous Duanshui Villa was even more ruthless than them. But considering the blood feud between him and the Boundless Sword sect, it was normal for his views to be extreme. Guyulian shook her head and said, "It's very difficult. There are many righteous masters. Just now, they were just in a mess. The poison formation and stone formation can't trap them for a long time. You should know that there are also capable people among them. At this time, they must be calculating the position of the formation and distributing the antidote." Before Guyulian's voice had even faded, she saw the righteous faction's martial art masters disorderly reorganizing their formation, with several sect leader-level martial art masters as the vanguard, turning left, turning right. They actually charged to the edge of the stone array. The broken arrows shot from the side were flicked by the sleeves of these masters and lost their power, falling to the ground with the wind. Xie Qingrong, the Kunlun sect leader, was the first to rush out of the formation. His face was still a little green, obviously still poisoned. After rushing out of the range of the poison formation, he gasped for breath and let out a long howl. The clear howl provided the location for the other people trapped in the stone formation. Suddenly, there were people who stumbled out. many of them had arrows stuck in their bodies and were seriously injured. We've fallen into the trap of the demons of the Blood God Palace. Retreat quickly. Xie Qingrong didn't care about his face and shouted loudly. At the same time, he protected a group of masters of the Kunlun sect and ran wildly in the direction of the valley entrance. Behind them, the Infinite Sword sect, the Huijian sect and other sects also fled. However, of the hundreds of righteous masters who entered the poison formation, less than a third of them escaped. More than 200 righteous faction experts either died from poison or arrows. Most of them were elite disciples, but there were also quite a few elders who were leader rank. To put it bluntly, it was because the warriors of the Sword Song world had too little health and were all fragile. Usually, relying on their high agility and lightness skills to dodge, they could pass through thousands of flowers without a single leaf touching them. But in the face of a neat military formation and rows of broken arrows, it was difficult to escape unscathed, not to mention the terrible interference of the poison formation. Bai Xiaowen secretly guessed that this was probably the reason why martial arts masters were afraid of being besieged by an army in wuxia novels. Not to mention the intensive long-range attacks of thousands of arrows, even in close combat, there were 7 or 8 soldiers surrounding you. 7 or 8 swords slashing at you at the same time, it was not easy to dodge and block. Even if you killed a few soldiers, there would be more to fill in. Even if you were a master, if you did not think of a way to break out, you would be exhausted to death. Since Gu Yulian knew that the poison formation and the stone formation would not be able to trap the righteous masters for too long, she naturally had a backup plan. Poisonous Guanyin Jimingjue played the snake flute. Immediately, a large number of poisonous snakes poured in from the valley entrance, forming a snake formation and surging towards the fleeing righteous masters. Xie Qingrong, the head of the Kunlun sect, paled. At this time, the remaining poison in the righteous masters' bodies had not been cleared. They could only move because of their profound skills, and the antidote pills given by the head of the Huijian sect, Wang Chenshi Tai, temporarily suppressed the poison. Once they used their full strength, the poison would easily flare up. If they were entangled by the snake formation, none of them would be able to escape. Scatter and break out. Let's save as many as we can. Xie Qingrong shouted loudly. His sword slashed out in circles, killing all the poisonous snakes in his path. He cleared out a path and flew away. The head of the Boundless Sword sect, Zui Yunxian, also followed suit. The righteous masters were like exploding fireworks, wildly flying in all directions. Although the snake formation commanded by Jimingjue was large in number, it was unable to stop so many people from breaking out at the same time. If the righteous masters were gathered together, they would be able to control the poisonous snakes to surround and attack. But now that everyone had scattered, it would be difficult to surround them again. Gu Yulian lightly waved her hand. The crossbowmen on both sides of the mountain ran along the ridges of the mountain. After entering the range, they once again shot out a rain of arrows, attacking indiscriminately along with the group of poisonous snakes. Jimingjue exclaimed, "Aya! My snakes!" Gu Yulian smiled. "After this, I'll compensate you." Jimingjue's eyes were charming, the corners of his mouth slightly hooked. "I'll remember this. Head Palace Master Gu will compensate me well." Bai Xiaowen felt a chill at the back of his neck. There was probably something fishy between Gu Yulian and Jimingjue. Thinking about it, when the other 6 division leaders didn't support Gu Yulian, Jimingjue was the first to side with Gu Yulian. He even didn't hesitate to set up poison at the Sword Discourse Cliff in advance, offending the other 6 division leaders. Rather than saying it was loyalty, it was better to say it was love. Combined with the fact that Gu Yulian was indifferent to his outstanding beauty, and the strange situation where her favorability rose at a snail's pace, Bai Xiaowen felt that there was something fishy. Could it be that Gu Yulian didn't like men, but women? Then her feelings for concubinine were probably not as simple as a disciple's admiration for her master. Bai Xiaowen was terrified. It seemed that he had to let Li Shi and Qiao Rui stay further away from Gu Yulian. But this had nothing to do with him. He raised his Desert Eagle and also participated in the long-range attacks. He didn't need treasure chests. As long as he contributed a little, he would receive soul essences. How profitable was that? This scene was seen by the other division leaders in Guyulian. They were all secretly shocked by Bai Xiaowen's bloodthirsty nature. However, the evil path's martial arts world was already used to killing. In addition to Bai Xiaowen's personal blood feud, no one criticized him. The righteous path's experts scattered and broke through the encirclement. In the end, only 20 or so people managed to escape. It could be said that they had suffered a great loss. The remaining righteous path experts trapped in the snake formation were either injured or poisoned. They could only stay where they were and wait for death. Guzhen was one of them. He was hit by Bai Xiaowen's giant snake. He suffered severe burns and all his attributes were halved. He was unable to break through the encirclement. Bai Xiaowen saw this and his heart stirred. He said to Ji Mingjue, "That Guzhen has a blood feud with me. I must kill him with my own hands. I'll have to trouble Valley Master Ji to spare his life." Ji Mingjue naturally didn't refuse. The sound of his flute changed and the snake formation went around Guzhen to attack the others. The battle ended and the crossbowmen stopped their attacks. Bai Xiaowen led his 3 teammates through the snake formation and walked in front of Guzhen. Guzhen's current appearance was very miserable. His whole body was like charcoal and his hair was all burned away. Giant snake? The residual heat of the flames was still wreaking havoc in his body. In addition, he was also poisoned. There were 2 crossbow bolts in his back and his life points had already fallen to the bottom. "Old man, you also have a day like this." Bai Xiaowen automatically entered the role of the Broken Water Manor's young master and said coldly. When Guzhen saw Bai Xiaowen, he first trembled. He knew that Bai Xiaowen wouldn't let him go. He wanted to die a bit more bravely, but he was also a bit timid. Seeing Bai Xiaowen raise the muzzle, handheld crossbow, and aim it at his forehead, Guzhen panicked and finally shouted, "Young Master Bai, all of this has nothing to do with me. It was all ordered by Senior Brother Sect Master Zuyunxian. He asked you to massacre Broken Water Manor?" Bai Xiaowen frowned and realized that things weren't simple. "Yes, this is the Sect Master's secret order brought by He Shiyuan. Senior Brother Zhangsun and I could only follow it. The reason is that Senior Brother Sect Master Zuyunxian saw the handwritten letter left by the 34th Sect Master and was very curious about He Shiyuan's Broken Water Sword intent. He secretly ordered us to assist He Shiyuan to obtain the Broken Water Sword manual and the cultivation method," Guzhen said with a trembling voice. Bai Xiaowen said coldly, "Even so, you are an accomplice and deserve to die." With a bang, a gunshot that only the awakened could hear, Guzhen was shot between his eyebrows. His life points were emptied and he fell to the ground dead. A golden treasure chest also condensed on his corpse. It was an unexpected surprise. In fact, it was normal for Guzhen to drop a treasure chest. After all, he was the giant snake Bai Xiaowen. He only entered a state of burn when he hit. Bai Xiaowen's contribution to the kill was very high. However, because the poison array and the crossbowmen also participated in the damage output, the final score wasn't high. The moment Guzhen died, Bai Xiaowen and the other 3 received a notification from the spiritual world's rules. S-rank elite side mission, Revenge. Completed and automatically submitted. Mission completion rate, 85%. Completion evaluation, good. Mission reward, Broken Water Sword Manual, with annotations. Broken Water Sword Manual, with annotations skill book. After use, the user will ignore the basic attribute requirements and learn the Broken Water Sword technique, LV6. Requires 1 skill slot. If the user's skill slot is full, the user will not receive the Broken Water Sword technique, LV6. Instead, the one-handed sword technique specialty will be increased by 1 to 3 levels, depending on the original specialty level. The higher the original specialty level, the less the increase. Chapter 771. Bai Xiaowen took the Broken Water Swordsmanship Manual in his hands. This manual was obviously obtained by Gu Zhen and the other two from Duanshui Villa. Bai Xiaowen's identity as the young master of Duanshui Villa made it normal for the manual to be a reward for the mission. Of course, according to Bai Xiaowen's understanding, this manual should not contain the cultivation method of the broken water swordsmanship, which was the version that Bai Hanjiang cultivated. The annotations on it might have been added by Bai Hanjiang, or it might have been done by Gu Zhen and the other two after they obtained the manual. The value of the manual was definitely much higher than the average skill book. After learning it directly, the skill level would be LV6, saving a lot of hard work in the early stages of skill leveling. The special note of ignore basic attribute requirements also caught Bai Xiaowen's attention. It seemed that high-level skill books might have basic attribute requirements. The skill books that he encountered before did not have the corresponding requirements, probably because the level was low. Moreover, if he did not plan to learn the broken water swordsmanship manual, he could also use it to improve his single-handed swordsmanship specialty. For Li Shi, who had started the awakening skill mission, completing the first step of the requirement of advanced swordsmanship specialty to level 10 would be very helpful. For now, don't use this skill book to improve your swordsmanship level, Bai Xiaowen said as he handed the manual to Li Shi. First of all, your single-handed swordsmanship specialty has not reached level 8, and the bonus of the warrior's star is still useful. In addition, your swordsmanship level is already very high, and the broken water swordsmanship manual can probably only be upgraded by 1 level. The possibility of directly upgrading by 2 levels is relatively small. Li Shi nodded. It's a bit of a loss to use the reward of an S-level elite mission to only upgrade my single-handed swordsmanship specialty by 1 level. Bai Xiaowen said, I mainly want to wait and see if there are any substitutes. If there is a need to use it in the later battles, or if there is no substitute item to upgrade specialty in the Sword Song realm, of course, don't be stingy and use it when necessary. For now, leave it in your storage space. After receiving the manual, Gu Yulian brought the division leaders to Bai Xiaowen and the other 3. Congratulations on your revenge, White Commander. Gu Zhen seemed to have said something to you before he died? Gu Yulian said. Bai Xiaowen received a notification message from the rules of the spiritual world. You received further clues about the Broken Water Villa massacre from Elder Gu of the Infinite Sword Sect. Zui Yunxian is the mastermind behind the scenes. You can announce this clue to the public and activate the next mission line. The White Phoenix team officially accepted this SS Plus level elite mission. Gu Yulian nodded happily and said, this time, the righteous sects returned with a great defeat. The Divine Palace won a great victory because of everyone's bravery in killing the enemy. Pass down the order. The damaged buildings of the 3 peaks and 4 valleys will be rebuilt. I will hold a banquet at the Blood God Peak. I invite all the division masters to participate and celebrate this victory. The division masters present all knew in their hearts that the celebration was fake. Gu Yulian's real purpose was to clear her name. After all, they had previously agreed that as long as Gu Yulian repelled the attack of the 7 righteous sects, everyone would submit to her as the palace master. The division masters understood in their hearts, but they had no intention of objecting. After this battle, they had already recognized Gu Yulian's amazing wisdom and decisiveness. She was fully qualified for the position of palace master. Then, a banquet was held in the main hall of the Blood God Peak. The elders of the 3 peaks and 4 valleys, as well as the division masters, all attended. During the banquet, the 7 division masters, including Bai Xiaowen, knelt down and bowed to Gu Yulian together, calling her palace master. Gu Yulian sat on the throne with a dignified aura. Bai Xiaowen was a little absent-minded. The beautiful image of the naked body he saw at the heart-cleansing pond appeared in his mind again. As for the matter of the heart-cleansing pond, Gu Yulian didn't mention it. Of course, Bai Xiaowen wouldn't mention it either. The two had a tacit understanding. Gu Yulian was quite open-minded. If it were any other ancient Huaxiao woman, they would probably kill Bai Xiaowen first, even if they didn't want to die. But Gu Yulian was different from ordinary girls. She grew up in the Blood God Palace and was not a lady from a noble family. What's more, Gu Yulian didn't like men. Men were like grass in her eyes. Bai Xiaowen even secretly thought that in Gu Yulian's heart, she might have thought that she was being looked at by a dog. Even though it was a handsome dog, it was no different from other dogs. The notification from the spiritual realm interrupted Bai Xiaowen's thoughts. Main mission, besieging the Blood God Palace has been completed. In the next 9 days, 22 hours, 45 minutes, and 52 seconds, you can freely explore the Sword Song Plain and return at any time. The benefits you gain from this adventure, including but not limited to spiritual energy points, equipment, and items, will not disappear. This main mission was completed as long as he participated in the besieging of the Blood God Palace and killed a well-known leader of the Sword Song Plain. The difficulty could be high or low. Bai Xiaowen killed leaders of both the righteous and the evil path. The evil path had the Blood God Peak's division master, Qin Hui, and the righteous path had elder-level powerhouses. They had already met the requirements of the mission. The completion of the main mission also allowed Bai Xiaowen to breathe a sigh of relief. Next, he could spend more energy on unearthing side missions. He could also do things more boldly. The spiritual realm's second notification came: the Blood God Palace's young master, Gu Yulian, has obtained the support of more than half of the 7 divisions of the Blood God Palace. B-Class Hero Side Mission, Master of the Blood God Palace, completed. You can find the Blood God Palace's 6th generation Palace Master, Gu Yulian, to submit the mission. As the division master of the Blood God Peak, Bai Xiaowen's position was closest to Gu Yulian. He directly chose to submit the mission of Master of the Blood God Palace. Gu Yulian nodded slightly, stood up and said to everyone, "Today we defeated the Righteous Path's clowns. Everyone can drink to your heart's content. I'm a little tired mentally, I'll take a rest first. Farewell, Palace Master." The leaders of the major divisions led their divisions and bowed again. Compared to before, they were much more courteous. Under Gu Yulian's signal, Bai Xiaowen and the other 3 also stood up and left their seats and followed. Not far away, the Thousand Snake Valley's master, Poisonous Han Guanin and Ji Mingjue also followed. The group avoided the banquet hall and came to the inner hall. Gu Yulian said, "This time we convinced the heroes and defeated the righteous path. The White Commander has worked hard and contributed greatly. According to our previous agreement, I'll give you a set of martial arts in the martial library. Which martial arts do you want? Other than the Blood God scripture, you can choose any one." While speaking, Gu Yulian waved her hand and a scroll unfurled. On the scroll, a list of martial arts was densely written in tiny characters. The phaseless magic art, flowing cloud sword art, and so on that Bai Xiaowen had seen before were all listed. Bai Xiaowen frowned and pondered. The martial arts in the martial library were indeed not inferior to Ying Jianfan's flying shadow sword technique. Any one of them would be a sex ultimate technique in the Jianghu. However, Bai Xiaowen didn't want these. Even the flowing cloud sword technique, which was claimed to not require the support of internal energy, Bai Xiaowen didn't even consider it. "Palace Master Gu, the martial arts I want is," Bai Xiaowen thought for 0.1 seconds. Thousands of thoughts had already spun in his mind. In the end, he slowly spat out 3 words: "Jade Forging Formula." Hearing this, Gu Yulian's expression changed slightly. On the other hand, Ji Mingjue directly reprimanded, "White Commander, you actually want the Palace Master's ultimate technique? This was created by the previous generation's Palace Master with great effort. It has an extraordinary meaning to Palace Master Gu. You're too much." Bai Xiaowen said calmly, "Is Jade Forging Formula one of the martial arts in the martial library?" "Palace Master, when we agreed, you didn't say that I can't ask for this martial arts." Gu Yulian lowered her eyelids and nodded slightly, "Yes, we only agreed that I can't ask for the Blood God scripture." "Then please do not hesitate to give it to me, Palace Master," Bai Xiaowen said. Ji Mingjue frowned and wanted to say something, but Gu Yulian reached out and stopped her. She said lightly, "Bai Xiaowen, I've reminded you before that your meridians are blocked and not suitable for cultivating internal energy. Not to mention that jade forging formula is not suitable for men to cultivate. It's even more impossible for you to cultivate it. I advise you to choose another martial art, lest you end up with nothing. Bai Xiaowen shook his head. His attitude was very firm. It was obvious that jade forging formula's grade was higher than most of the martial arts in the martial library. Dark Concubine was known as one of the 4 masters of the Wuling. How could the martial arts that she created with great effort be weak? Forget it. Since you didn't break the agreement, then I have to keep my promise. Gu Yulian sighed. She took out a roll of yellowed animal skin from her sleeve and handed it to Bai Xiaowen. The spiritual realm's law prompted the message, B-rank hero side mission, Palace Master has been completed. Mission completion rate, 89%. Evaluation, good. You've received 3,000 merit points. You've received the skill book, Jade Forging Formula. Your reputation in the evil Wuling camp has increased. Current reputation level, reverence. Blood God Palace Master Gu Yulian's favorability towards you has increased. Current favorability level, friendly. Thousand Snake Valley Master Ji Mingjua's favorability towards you has increased, another series of notifications. However, the increase in favorability between Gu Yulian and Ji Mingjue was very small. Bai Xiaowen felt that if he hadn't insisted on asking for Jade Forging Formula, the favorability of these 2 people would have increased to the friend level at least. No matter what, he had completed a hero side mission. So what if she was a lesbian? The increase in favorability had to follow the basic rules. Now, it was all F***king over. However, Bai Xiaowen didn't regret it. Wasn't the ultimate goal of having a good relationship with the people of the spiritual realm to gain benefits? It wasn't a loss to pay the price of this small amount of favorability. After receiving the animal skin that recorded Jade Forging Formula, Bai Xiaowen took a look at it. Jade Forging Formula Secret Manual, Special Item. After use, there is a chance to obtain a special skill, Jade Forging Formula, Inner Strength. There was also a small description on the secret manual. Frowny face description. Jade Forging Formula can only be cultivated by a woman whose bone age is between 8 and 14 years old. The younger the age, the better the effect. If a man wants to cultivate it, he needs to castrate himself first to meet the cultivation requirements. If the bone age is over 14 years old, he needs to use heaven and earth treasures to help the cultivator cut his hair and cleanse his marrow. Bai Xiaowen inquired about the range of heaven and earth treasures from the spiritual realm's rules. He wondered if the 100-year ginseng on the military supply officer's exchange list counted. This thing could increase 4 points of free attribute points, so it was quite precious. The spiritual realm's rules denied it without hesitation. Bai Xiaowen asked about the steps of cutting hair and cleansing marrow again. This time, the spiritual realm's rules didn't even give a definite answer. They just said stiffly, please find the corresponding spiritual realm people from the Sword Song dimension to understand. Bai Xiaowen had no choice but to grab Gu Yulian and ask. Gu Yulian said lightly, the exotic technique that the White Commander and his servants cultivate has great potential. Why should they neglect the fundamentals and focus on the details to cultivate their inner strength? I don't know much about how to cut hair and cleanse marrow, but my master should know. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but Bai Xiaowen felt that the way Gu Yulian and Ji Mingjue looked at him was a little strange. There was a hint of admiration in their disdain. This kind of complicated and contradictory look could only be detected by people with extremely sharp minds like Bai Xiaowen. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.